My husband all of a sudden is texting his high school crush and is actually making plans to meet up with her. But after I confronted him about this and said that this makes me uncomfortable, he got incredibly defensive and turned this against me, putting me in a situation where I don't know if I'm crazy for having any kind of issue with this, because right now I feel completely dejected and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I really need someone to hear me out, especially men. I want you to really, and I mean really, imagine the scenario and tell me if this can be just an innocent thing not to worry about. Okay, so me and my husband have been together for almost a decade, and most of it we've been married to each other happily. We've grown so much together and built the perfect life and relationship for us. We trust each other and there are no problems or uncertainties between us, especially when we talk about our friends. Now, my husband had a very big crush on a girl from his high school for like 3 years. He eventually confessed then and received a rejection, as the girl told him that she doesn't feel the same way and she most likely probably likes girls more. He continued to be friends with her after rejection, and then after school they stopped talking. Well, all of a sudden, my husband wakes up today and says he saw her in his dreams after 15 years and immediately wanted to find her on social media to see what she's doing with her life and what she's become. Well, he then finds her and sends her a text message. Just something casual like, "Hi, how are you? I was just thinking about high school and I wanted to search for schoolmates," and stuff like that. But then the conversation went to, "Hey, let's meet up and catch up sometime this week." And by the way, he tells me about this only several hours later in the car when he is already back from being out of town. He says to me, "Don't freak out, but here's the deal. I feel nothing about her now, but I'm just gonna meet up and catch up with her. I want to know what you think about it." Now, initially, I was shocked. Then, slowly coming into terms with that, when he says to me, "You trust me, right? I gave too much to build all of this with you, and I really value it to lose it because of something like this. So it's just a catch-up meeting. And for one, if I realize I feel something, I will immediately stop any communication after that. Secondly," he said, "if I realize she's a great person and I don't feel anything about her, I may stay friends with her because I also want a new person to talk to, just like you with all your guy friends that you talk to." Now, just to mention, every guy I generally talk to, not on a daily basis mind you, is either one of his friends, my married coworkers, or just old friends from former jobs or college who I never had a crush on or had ever been pursued by. I eventually told him that it's okay to meet once, and because I know her and she knows me, he can tell that we are happily married, so there's no possibility that the girl thinks it's a date or anything like that. But guess what? As I went to sleep that night, I started to analyze and overthink everything. I realized that I would think 100 times before writing to my former crush, let alone ask him to meet up with me. I realized I would be okay with it if it was any other girl, including ones that had a crush on him, but not a person that he was in love with for like 3 long years and was telling me about with sparkles in his eyes when we were young and just friends. I couldn't sleep the whole night, imagining all that could go wrong from that one meetup and all the branching realities. My afterthought that stayed was me thinking, well, why does he want to stir things up when they were all mostly quiet, even if he doesn't have feelings now? It's possible that the spark is reignited, right? But also why? Well, I told him my thoughts in the morning after a completely sleepless night, and he got immediately so mad, but only for the fact that I could not sleep because of such a tiny irrelevant matter, that I would sacrifice my health for things that didn't happen yet and wouldn't happen. He then started yelling that I don't trust him, and that my overthinking is a big problem, and I should not decide who he wants to meet up with and send a text message to. But I said that I should when it affects me and my relationship. He then said if that's the case, then he will from now on refuse to let me meet any of my guy friends just to show me how controlling my behavior feels. But when I said to him, but I've not had any deep loving feelings for 3 years for any of them, he said to me, my God, it was 15 years ago. Anyways, we had a big fight with tears and everything else. His last remark was him saying, "You became the woman I was happy you weren't," in terms of like sick jealousy, and that hurt really deeply. He then added, "This topic is closed. I won't text her anymore and I'm not going to meet up with her, as you wish." The thing is, if not for such things like telling me about his plans to stay connected with her, refusing to show me what they texted initially, even though he showed me later, and even changing his 5-year-old cringy username to a normal thing before writing her to make an impression, I would agree with the meetup and not have a second thought about it until later. But he behaved like an excited 15-year-old with those actions. But I also think I really overdid my imagination. So to the guys listening, is it possible that this is an innocent thing and he is right? Is it possible that this will not lead to anything worse? If I set clear boundaries versus if I just let him be, what could be the outcome? It surely feels like a midlife crisis of some kind. Like he wants to check if she suddenly wants him now, as he got better, fitter, and good looking. I don't know, I'm honestly so confused right now and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you, this is not normal behavior. As a guy listening to this, I'm immediately thinking to myself, okay, this guy wants to cheat on you. And I totally understand that you're saying, oh yeah, we're happily married. But this guy doesn't sound happily married at all. It sounds like he wants to meet up with a girl he had a crush on in high school, which in my opinion screams that he's looking for something else in his life. Which really sucks because it doesn't sound like you've done anything wrong. If anything, this all falls on your husband's shoulders. So no, you're not the jerk here. You haven't done anything wrong. I would be questioning this too if I was in your shoes. Because his behavior and the fact that he got so defensive over this, in my opinion, screams that there's something else going on under the surface. Because this does not seem as innocent as he's trying to make it seem. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not being the bigger person in the family and making peace with my sister after she said some very offensive things towards me in my life and all I did was react to it? Because right now I'm being told that I need to be the bigger man and just let it all go, despite the fact that I'm always the person doing that for my sister. And at this point, I'm just so sick of having to do that because right now I am super pissed and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I had a big blow up with my older sister during a family dinner. It started over something really stupid. She asked me why I still haven't bought a place yet, and then went on this whole speech about how I play it safe and waste my years, and how she and her husband took risks and that's why they're ahead. I tried to laugh it off at first, but she kept going, and added in that my girlfriend is probably tired of waiting for me to get serious. And that's when I snapped and I told her to stop talking about my life like it's a group project. She then did that thing where she got all offended and said that she was just worried and that I'm too sensitive. But I said that I'm not asking her to worry, I'm asking her to mind her own business. Then she said to me, fine, I'll just never speak again, which is her favorite drama move. Everyone then got quiet after that, and my mom tried to change the topic. I ended up leaving early because I could feel myself getting angrier and I just didn't want to say something worse. Since then, I haven't reached out and neither has she. My mom keeps calling me and doing this soft guilt trip thing like, oh, you know how she is. You're the man, so you have to be the bigger person. My dad even texted me a link to some random article about forgiveness. And no, I'm not kidding. My aunt even messaged me that family is all we have and I shouldn't throw it away over a few words. But here's the thing, it wasn't a few words. This has been her pattern forever. She takes little shots and then if you react, you become the problem. I'm tired of being the one who smooths it over because it teaches her that she can say anything and I'll just come back like a dog. Also, I don't even think I'm asking for some huge apology. A simple, hey, I went too far would be completely fine. But it feels like everyone wants me to crawl first just so she can keep acting like she did nothing. My girlfriend is on my side, but even she said, do you really want to drag this out? And sure, I get it. I don't love tension. I just hate the principle of it. If I reach out first, it'll be seen as proof that she was right and I was emotional and now I've calmed down. And that makes my stomach turn. So would I be at fault for not making the first move and waiting her out, even if it makes family stuff awkward for a while? Because right now I don't know what to do. Yeah, man, I've seen this in so many different ways in like my own family and in my own circle of friends, where one person acts like a really toxic jerk, and then if you react to it, suddenly you're the problem by reacting to their mistreatment. And it's like, bro, why are we not addressing the person who's causing the problems in and of itself? Why not go to them and be like, hey, cut it out, instead of coming to me and be like, oh, wow, I can't believe you got offended. When it's like, dude, if you were on the other side of that, you absolutely would have been offended as well. So in that regard, I completely understand where the original poster is coming from. They realize that this family dynamic is so skewed and completely toxic that you apologizing first in their minds is going to be like, oh yeah, he was at fault. Wow, I'm glad that's over. Meanwhile, your older sister has like zero accountability. She's not being held accountable for anything that she says or anything like that. Because where does she get off on judging your life? Saying that you're playing it safe and you're wasting your years? Like, that is so weird. My life is none of your business. Like, shut up and get away from me. So no, if I was in your shoes, and maybe this is just me talking, and I know this is a little bit toxic, I would wait them out forever. I would never apologize until they say something first. Like, that would be the key to getting me to apologize in this scenario, because otherwise I would happily drag this out. Because at the end of the day, you didn't do anything wrong. All you did was like respond to the way they acted towards you, and that, in my opinion, is not the problem here. The real problem is your older sister and the toxic things she says. And until that's specifically addressed, I would absolutely hold out as long as possible. Am I the jerk for having long hair at my friend's wedding? Because after the fact, I'm being told that his wife really doesn't like the fact that my hair was long. But despite the fact that I was never told to cut it, I'm still being treated in a really passive-aggressive way. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. So I was invited to be a groomsman for my friend's wedding. For the sake of the story, we'll call my friend Parker, and I've known him since high school. We became friends through a mutual friend, so I felt honored that he would ask me to be a part of the wedding party. 2 days before the wedding, Parker messaged in the group chat the dress and appearance expectations that he and his fiance wanted for their wedding. And I'll just call his fiance Diane for the sake of the story. The only thing they expected for hair was neat and styled. And as I'm now 25 years old, I've been growing my hair out ever since high school, and I keep it long just above my shoulders. To be courteous, I did ask Parker if there was any specific way I should style my hair. You know, like put it in a man bun, half up, half down, ponytail, etc. And he sent the shrugging emoji and said that Diane just wanted neat and clean. So that's exactly what I went with. I showered the night before, then I ironed and curled my hair before the wedding. And while the wedding itself was amazing, after the wedding was not. Fast forward, and a week later, I was hanging out with Parker, as well as some of the other friends of ours that are groomsmen too. The wedding naturally got brought up in conversation, and later Parker pulled me aside and said that Diane was upset that my hair was long while the rest of the groomsmen's hair was short. He said that he didn't think it was a big deal, but apparently she wouldn't stop talking about it, and that she had told him to mention it to me before the wedding. A friend nearby heard what we were talking about and said he also thought it was weird that my hair was long. Now, my defense was that the only instruction I was given was to be neat and clean, and that I could not have gotten it cut from when Parker and his wife set their expectations. Parker then ended the conversation that he wasn't bothered by it, but I will say he was cold to me for the rest of the night. I want to move on, but I feel like Parker is being passive-aggressive and people are taking his wife's side. So, in the grand scheme of this, am I really the jerk for having long hair at his wedding? Because right now I'm very confused. Okay, I can't stand crap like this. If Diane didn't want you to have long hair, she should have said something. Like, she should have straight up said, you need to cut your hair if you want to be in our wedding, and not drop these weird, obscure hints. Because guess what? Neat and clean can mean a lot of things. And I'm sure the original poster knows how to take care of their long hair. I'm sure they didn't keep it like a rat's nest that was greasy and gross. I'm sure they washed their hair and like had really good hygiene going into the wedding. You know, just like anybody else. So in my opinion, if there's any issues that Diane has with you not cutting your hair, it falls completely with Diane. Like, if she wanted that, then hey, maybe announce that before the wedding's about to take place. Or, and here's an idea, just say what you mean. No one can read your mind, Diane. We're not Charles Xavier from X-Men, lady. Like, you gotta say what you mean. Otherwise, we're going to interpret it exactly how you want. So in my opinion, you're not the jerk. I think Diane's an idiot for not saying something sooner. And I also think your friend's kind of a jerk for bringing this up in the first place. Because if this really was that big of a deal, then she should have brought it up well in advance. And the fact that they're bringing it up after the fact is just really passive-aggressive, and that is incredibly rude. Am I overreacting by telling my wife that her sleep and eating is messing up our family and her weight loss? Because after catching her so many times raiding the fridge while she's half awake, things have started to become incredibly tense in the house. And now I really just don't know what to do. Here's how it all started. Okay, so my wife is a little heavyset and plump, and always has been since I met her, and I'm totally happy with her body as it is, but she really wants to lose weight, and she's been dieting and trying to work out more. It's not like extreme or anything like that, but she's been refusing a lot of foods that she used to like to eat without thinking. We're talking stuff like garlic bread or ice cream, stuff along those lines. Which is fine, it's her body, she can do whatever she wants. But because of that, she's been getting super hungry at night and doing this thing where she wakes up and eats but is like half asleep. She doesn't remember most of it, and it's not just one thing either. It's sweet stuff, it's salty stuff, it's leftovers, and also it's other people's snacks. Even like the lunch meat that we buy so our daughter can make herself sandwiches when she's home alone. That's the part that annoys me the most, because then our kid opens the fridge and there's nothing for her. My wife always apologizes every time with an, oh, I'm sorry and I didn't mean to, etc. And then it just keeps happening anyways. So me and my daughter started hiding our snacks, which feels really stupid to do in your own home, but we were tired of stuff getting eaten. So here's the thing. Our daughter has a long distance friend, and they sent her a chocolate box from a local shop as an early Valentine's gift. She was really excited about it, and she didn't want them to melt, so she put the box in our new deep freezer. She figured my wife wouldn't look there because we don't really keep anything in it yet. Well, the next day after dinner, she went to get the chocolates, opened the box, and half of them were gone. She then got mad, like really mad, and started yelling. Well, eventually, my wife was crying, saying that she was sorry and she didn't remember doing it. Then I jumped in and I told my wife that this is what's straining things between her, me, and our daughter. And honestly, probably part of why she's not losing weight, because she's basically binge eating in her sleep after not eating what she actually wants all day. She said that I'm blaming her for something she can't control, and that I'm fat-shaming her and making her feel disgusting. But I wasn't trying to shame her. I literally don't care about her weight at all. I just care that our daughter is upset and our food keeps getting taken, and the house is in such distress over snacks. Now she's giving our daughter the cold shoulder, even after she apologized for yelling at her, and I feel like I made everything worse by saying anything at all. So seriously, am I overreacting, or am I the jerk in some way for stepping in? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest here. It really seems like your wife has some kind of like eating disorder or like some sleep disorder where she's waking up in the middle of the night and just raiding the fridge. So I think that might be what's like actually going on here, instead of it being like, oh man, I'm not eating what I want during the day, so I'm gonna eat it at night. Like maybe there's something deeper going on here that a doctor would probably want to look at. But regardless, I don't think you're the jerk at all for stepping in. I think you're just trying to be honest with her and be like, hey, this is like causing a rift between us, which in my opinion shows that you do care about her and you do want her to get better. An entitled customer called me stupid after I told him that we didn't have certain items he was looking for. So I decided to get some petty revenge by hiding his receipt after he made a different purchase, guaranteeing that this guy would never be able to find it in time if he ever tried to make a return. Which, trust me, if you don't have a receipt and you're returning something to my store, it is a nightmare just to get it done. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I've worked retail for like 3 years, and so at that point, you kind of develop a thick skin, but sometimes someone really gets under it. Anyways, this guy comes in the other day who's middle-aged, and he was already annoyed before I even spoke to him. He wanted a specific speaker that was on sale, but unfortunately we were sold out. So I told him I could check other stores or order online for him with the same price. Pretty reasonable options, right? Well, no, because he goes, "Are you stupid? Just check the back." When he said this, I smiled and said I'd check, and I walked to the back. I then stood there for 3 minutes and I came back out and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have any." He then bought a different speaker that was a lot more expensive, meaning that he was coming out of there with a loss. But there is one thing about our return policy that is important. It requires a receipt. And sure, you can do it without one, but it's also like this huge thing. We're talking managers, ID, store credit only. It's a massive pain in the neck. So I bagged up his speaker, I folded the receipt as small as it would go, then I taped the bag shut, then I put the bag inside another bag and taped that shut, and then finally I tucked the receipt right between the layers where the tape meets the plastic. So if he ever wants to return that speaker, he will have to destroy both the bags to find it, and even then it's this tiny crumpled square wedged in tape residue. Now, will this ruin his life? No, of course not. But will it mildly inconvenience him at the exact moment he's already frustrated about returning something? Yeah, you better believe so. So yeah, enjoy your speaker, sir. I hope you love it, because returning it is going to be a whole different adventure in and of itself. Oh man, this is like setting a grenade in this guy's psyche. You know for a fact he's gonna freak out if he ever like returns that speaker, because he's definitely not gonna find that receipt, but also he's probably gonna lose his mind when he has to like go through the process of getting a manager and getting store credit only and having to show his ID. Like, my god, that's the worst thing possible, especially for some unreasonable jerk like the guy in this story. So yeah, I love this petty revenge. This is fantastic. I wish I thought of this when I was in retail, like good lord, because unless you've worked retail, then you really just don't know how nasty some people can be. So I love this, and I think this is a fantastic idea. My ex-boyfriend walked out of my house and my life after I asked him to get a job or just help out around the house, because this guy absolutely tried to flip the script on me, despite the fact that he is absolutely at fault and probably the laziest piece of garbage I've ever dealt with in my entire life. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I work full-time, I bought a house before I met this guy, I pay all the bills, I cook, and I clean. He, however, was technically still employed when we met, getting paid, but the contract just ended, and he moved in but has never worked ever since then. 2 years later, I simply said that I feel a bit used, and in a classic Darvo reaction, he denied it was true and said that I was crapping all over his hobby. For reference, I've actually booked shows for him, set up invoicing, and I go to fairs with him to try and turn it into a business. Oh, and according to him, I never ask him how he's doing, even though I do. When I said it was my house, he got mad at me, declared it's always about money, and asked if he should just get his rucksack and leave. Well, you know what? I told him go right ahead if he wanted to have that kind of temper tantrum, and fast forward to Friday, and that's exactly what he did. He left while I was at work with his bloody rucksack. He hasn't contacted me since and is probably sleeping rough since his van is still on my drive. And I do feel a bit bad because it is winter, so it seems like he would literally rather be homeless than help out around the house, or even just get some bullcrap job, as he put it. The entitlement that he thinks I should work while he just sits around at home, eating my food and watching my TV all day is honestly ridiculous. I should have put my foot down way sooner than this. I'm too old for this kind of crap. I just wanted to get this off my chest because my ex-boyfriend was absolutely toxic. Oh man, what a piece of work. You mean to tell me that this guy literally said, oh, you want me to help out around the house? Fine, I'll just leave and be homeless. Like, bro, she is not asking a lot. All she wants you to do is get like even a simple job and help out around the house. I don't know, do some chores or cook some food, do anything to contribute. Sitting around and doing nothing is absolutely not on the table. You can't do that. That's literally unfair for your girlfriend, especially in her own home. And yeah, by the way, it's her house. You can't just sit there and be like, oh man, it's all about the money. Because yeah, it is kind of all about the money when you don't contribute any. So good for you for kicking this guy out because he sounds like a deadbeat, and I'm sure you can do way better than this. My toxic in-laws have been constantly talking garbage about me behind my back in another language, saying terrible things about me under the guise that I couldn't understand them. But after listening to this for several months, as well as putting up with so many awful comments, I decided to drop the news that yes, I understood what they were saying and that I've known the entire time. And now, as a result, my entire extended family has freaked out on me, claiming that I'm the one at fault for secretly knowing that they were insulting me all along. Here's what happened. My husband and I have been married for about 3 years, and for the sake of the story, we'll call my husband Peter. We have one child together, and I was pregnant with our second, and I'm Western Canadian while he is from Germany. We lived in Canada for a long time, but because of inflation, moving back to Germany seemed to be a better option for us. So we bought a nice house in the place where my husband is from. The day after our flights to Germany, we all visited Peter's family, and this was the second time I've seen them, with the first time being our wedding. They greeted us and brought us inside of the house, fussing over my son. We had dinner, and soon we left the house, wanting to settle into our new home. Now, we visited Peter's family often for the next few months, but I had started to realize that they would sometimes speak about me in German. They would make rude comments on my hair and makeup, question my fashion choices, and overall were just very unkind to me. They also said mean things about my pregnant belly, which I was already insecure about. I ended up talking to my husband about this, and I told him that I didn't like the way that they were treating me. I said that I hated how my every choice was judged. So he told me that he would talk to his family. Well, the next time we went to his parents' house, there were no more mean comments. And for about 3 months, it was like nothing ever happened. I gave birth to a perfect baby girl that we named Lilith, and Peter's family was very upset when they heard the name. Now, if you didn't know, Lilith means ghost or of the night. We didn't pick this name because of its meaning, but because it's a name that every girl in my family has had for many years. My middle name is Lilith, along with my mom's, my grandma's, and even my great-grandma's. For a while, I didn't visit my in-laws. I didn't want to hear them talk about how I shouldn't have named my daughter Lilith. But yesterday, we saw them again. It was my mother-in-law's birthday, and as soon as we showed up, things started to go badly. Everybody wanted to hold Lilith, which made my mother-in-law upset because people weren't paying attention to her and made me overwhelmed. But I didn't want people to hold her. I was going through a pretty bad postpartum depression, and it was pretty early to see people. So I let people look at her but declined when anybody asked to hold her. During the dinner, I heard my sister-in-law talking to my mother-in-law in German, and I actually heard her complaining about how she couldn't hold my baby. My sister-in-law even had the audacity to call me, and I quote, a fat, ugly addict. Well, I turned to my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, and I told them off in German. I basically said that I have always known what they have said about me, but calling me names was honestly the last straw. I also mentioned how I have known German for almost my entire life. Well, when I said that, the table instantly blew up. People were yelling at me because apparently this was my fault. I eventually left with Peter, and we haven't talked to them ever since. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. These people absolutely had it coming, and you call them out in the perfect moment. You're literally in front of the entire family, and you're watching as all of them are complicit while these comments are being made. They're not only not defending you, but they're also letting it happen. And that, in my opinion, is almost worse than anything else. So the fact that you dropped it on them like that, and based on the way they reacted, shows that they're not only guilty, but also how absolutely obnoxious they are. They really tried to turn this on you and be like, oh, this is your fault for not telling us. And you almost want to question and be like, why? Because now you can't talk garbage about me behind my back? Like, there's no way this is your fault. This also makes me wonder how many times your husband has let this slide. Like, sure, he kept it a secret that you know German, but did he ever chime in and be like, wait, don't talk about my wife like that? Like, I really hope he did defend you in some kind of way, because if not, that means he's complicit as well, and that would be so damaging in my opinion. It's also hilarious to me that these people didn't assume that the lady who's married to a German man who moved to and bought a house in Germany doesn't somehow know German. Like, seriously, talk about a miscalculation to the highest degree. Did they really just not think it through that maybe you know what they're talking about? Like, in my opinion, I think you have the patience of a saint, because if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would put up with that for even a second. Like the second I knew they were talking garbage about me and I realized that they actually don't like me in the way that I hoped they would, I would have set that record straight real quick, especially if I'm going to be living in the same city as these people. So no, with all things considered, you are absolutely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. You've tried to be cordial with these people, and it really sounds like you did everything right to try and make these people like you in the best way possible. But at the end of the day, people like this never change, meaning that their behavior is absolutely not your problem. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not moving my wedding date just to accommodate my sister's pregnancy? Because right now she's really mad, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I have a sister who we will call Ellie. Ellie and I have always been close growing up, despite her being 3 years older. We've always been best friends, and I was her maid of honor, and she's gonna be mine. Ellie is currently 5 months pregnant, and she had a rough first trimester, throwing up 3 to 4 times a day and always was very tired. Some days she literally couldn't get out of bed. She had also found out early when she was a month into it because her symptoms were so bad. Her and I live close to each other, and since her husband travels a lot for work, I have stayed with her a lot since I work remotely. Now, my fiance and I had originally set the date for July. However, seeing how sick that she was, I, along with my entire family, were getting very worried. And so, after my fiance and I discussed it, we decided to reschedule the wedding until after she had passed her first trimester, and per her doctor, she was supposed to get better. Now, I need to add that nobody asked us to do this, but I felt that it was needed. And thank God she did get better. She's eating normally and going out and back to herself. Seeing this, my fiance and I talked about our wedding again, and had always wanted a summer wedding on the beach, but I didn't want to wait a full year, and seeing winter wedding pictures was slowly growing on me. And so with that, we decided on a December wedding. The invitations were finalized last week with the date, and it was all sent out a couple of days ago. And yes, it is early, but my man and I all have big families and big group of friends and colleagues, so we need to get the RSVPs very early. Well, yesterday I got an angry phone call from my sister asking how I can do something like this to her. I was honestly confused, and I told her as much, and she went on to rant about how inconsiderate I was to not wait until my nephew was born, that her being the maid of honor and 8 months pregnant is going to be hard, and that she has already been through so much already. I calmly explained to her that while yes, she is the maid of honor, I don't expect her to go above and beyond. My best friend and her had always planned a girls' night back when my wedding was in July, so we're just going with that again. I mean, everything is already bought and my best friend will set it up. I told her that my man and I have also rebooked everything ourselves, and that I will pay to have her dress resized to accommodate her bump. I'm even taking care of hair and makeup for all my wedding party, so we will have a sort of pamper session where we'll all get ready together and take pictures. So basically, all she's required to do is show up. Well, she's having none of it, and is demanding that we reschedule it again until next summer. But I put my foot down and I gave her a flat out no. My parents called me and asked me to reconsider, saying that I know she's emotional and hormonal, but I told them that's not an excuse to act this way. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update they would like to share. Here's what they had to say. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their comments and their advice. I'm definitely seeing her side more than I was before, but I do want to clarify some things that I didn't add in the post. When we rescheduled the wedding, her and my brother-in-law had my fiance and I over for dinner, as we do weekly dinners every Friday, and she had thanked me for rescheduling and told me that she felt guilty, but I made sure to tell her that I don't blame her and that having her there healthy and happy is what matters, in whatever capacity she can give me. I made sure that she knew that she could step down from maid of honor at any point, even if it was the day before the wedding, and that I would understand no matter what. That dinner, my man and I also floated the idea of a winter wedding around, and both her and my brother-in-law said it would be fun since we haven't had that in our family yet. We also chose the date around many of our family schedules along with our friends' availabilities, who were also still being gracious enough to do our wedding flowers and catering and renting us the venue despite us rescheduling it once already. Also, I may have to update in the future because my parents called and invited me to their house so my sister and I can talk it out. I have no idea why she's using a third party, even if it is our parents, but this all is super frustrating and I'm just wondering where this is gonna lead. First and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk for moving the date of your wedding. You already did it once to try and accommodate her, and now she's turning around and acting like, oh my god, why would you do this to me? You're gonna be ruining everything if you do that. That is absolutely ridiculous because this is not about her. And it's also just insulting for her to be like, no, get married next year. Because like, wait a second, why do you have any say in when the original poster gets married? That's really annoying and there's just no reason to act like that. So no, I don't think the original poster is the jerk at all, and I think the way the sister's acting is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for clapping back at my cousin after he spread a false rumor that I was pregnant? Because right now I am very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my third cousin by marriage is a 9-year-old and honestly is probably a sociopath. He purposefully breaks and steals people's property, even his grandma's family heirlooms, and constantly publicly disrupts things. In fact, he started shouting animal noises during the quiet part of his uncle's funeral. He is just a massive piece of garbage child all around, and his two dads are pretty much hands-off and barely even supervise him, much less discipline him, and then also get really verbally aggressive when someone else speaks up to them about their son's unacceptable behavior. One of his new hobbies is telling me that I look pregnant and that I'm fat. I'm a size 10, so I'm not tiny, but like not really fat. I do have a condition called diastasis recti that I can't have surgery to fix until I'm done having kids, but it gives my belly a more pronounced appearance. I've explained this nicely to the kid and his parents multiple times, that I have this medical condition that I'm self-conscious about, and I'm very sensitive. So please stop loudly saying I'm pregnant and calling me fat. Well, he kept doing it, and he also only does it in front of large groups of people, like when we're all gathered around a fire pit or eating dinner. So I know that he knows that I'm not pregnant and that it's inappropriate to be doing this. So we were at a family dinner this weekend, and this kid goes up to the bartender my mother-in-law hired for this private event and tells him not to serve me because I'm pregnant and an alcoholic. I then went up to the bartender myself later with a group of my husband's family to get a glass of wine, and he actually refused to serve me, citing this kid for telling him that I'm pregnant. And when I heard that, I just died inside. I was beyond mortified. I then marched up to one of the kid's dads and I told him what the kid did and said that he needed to ask him to apologize to me because that was unacceptable. Well, he refused and actually got offended that I would ask for an apology. So I'm pissed. I walk up to the kid and I say to him, I know what you did to the bartender. Why did you do that? To which he replied by saying, it was funny. Well, I clapped back. I said to him, you know what? I understand why your original mother and father didn't want you and put you up for adoption. You're a bad kid. Well, when I said that, the kid starts bawling, and it's the first time I've ever seen him cry. And after I said that, I just walked away. He told the whole family, and I just said that I asked him why he did what he did, and I'm sure people believe me because this kid also lies a lot. But I do kind of feel bad, and I wonder if I was out of line, or if there's something else I should have done instead. I just got sick of trying to take the high road and address it with the parents and having them not give a single care about it. And you know what? I also rationalize it by saying, well, maybe now he'll learn not to mess around and find out, and maybe next time he'll think twice about trying to hurt somebody. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna be honest real quick. I don't think the original poster's the jerk. Now, this might be a hot take. I totally understand if someone's like, wow, how could you feel that way? But this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, I think it's time to fight fire with fire. In my opinion, if your parents are not going to supervise your kid, and this kid's gonna run around and do stuff like this, at that point, the gloves are off. That little brat actually went up to a bartender and said, don't serve her, she's an alcoholic and pregnant. And sure, the bartender's a moron for believing that crap, but also this kid was completely over the line. He's done this repeatedly, and the original poster has talked to the parents repeatedly. She's practically begged them to please leave her alone about this and that she's really sensitive and self-conscious about it. Like literally, she's done everything she can to be civil and try to take the high road, as she put it. But this little demon spawn clearly has no discipline in his life, and he thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep doing it because I think it's funny. And if the parents aren't gonna get involved and no one's gonna listen, then in my opinion, what the original poster said is not at all that bad. Because here's the thing, the parents and the kid allowed it to get to this level. You literally just want to exist at family events and not be called pregnant or fat by some stupid brat. And that's all this kid is. He's spoiled, he has no discipline, and the parents are clearly doing nothing to help out. And worst of all, they're the kind of parents who get upset when you say something about their stupid kid. And oh my god, I can't stand parents like that. They are the worst to deal with because they just don't see what's actually happening. Or they do see what's happening and they still don't do anything about it. So personally, maybe that's a hot take, but if I was in the original poster shoes and I had been harassed like this by this stupid kid over and over again at pretty much every opportunity he's given, then I would probably say something like this, if not a little bit worse. And the thing is, this kid absolutely has it coming. You can't just talk to someone like that and expect to get away with it all because you think it's funny, or even because your parents are literally doing nothing to supervise you. So truly, I think you did nothing wrong in this scenario, and I think this kid absolutely absolutely had it coming. An entitled older couple followed me from store to store, claiming that I tried to hit this old lady with my car, even though I definitely didn't. Here's what happened. So I've been visiting my family in my hometown, and yesterday I borrowed my mom's car to visit a close friend and her family. I stopped at the store, which is located in a small strip mall, to pick up a treat for the kids, and while I was driving through the parking lot, a woman, probably in her early 60s, was walking over to her car. So I slowed down, and I came to a complete stop about 3 to 4 feet from her so that I could let her cross. And when I did that, she stood in front of my vehicle to scream at the top of her lungs about how I almost hit her and this was a parking lot. I mouthed the word sorry to her just to de-escalate the situation, but she refused to move and continued screaming at me. So I drove around her and I went to park the car to enter the grocery store. I took maybe 5 steps from my car and I noticed that she was storming over towards me, absolutely fuming. So I immediately got back in my car and I drove away about 5 minutes down the road to a different store just so I could not engage with this lady. As I was waiting in the checkout line of the store, I saw her and a man who I assume was her husband walk in and began looking around, definitely looking for me. And at that point, I got super freaked out and I left my items behind and immediately exited the store and walked to my car. Well, she saw me and followed me out to the parking lot and proceeded to scream in my face about how I almost hit her and kept saying how she has pictures of my license plate. Her husband also just stood behind her with his arms crossed, staring me down. After about a minute of this, I got into the car and I locked the doors, and I just kept telling her to get away from me, but she continued to stand in front of my car and scream at me and film me on her phone, all the way until I called the police, which I told her I was doing so if she didn't get away from me, and it was only then that she left when she realized I wasn't bluffing about calling. Well, this really freaked me out, because I have been attacked completely at random in public before, and I know rationally that she probably wasn't going to attack me, but by the time I got on the phone with the dispatcher, I was like completely shaking and could barely handle my phone to make the call. Now, I want to be clear that I was driving probably 10 to 15 miles an hour at most in this parking lot, and there were many other people walking because it was a Saturday morning, and we were right in front of a diner which is also in this strip mall. It would not have been possible to be driving fast because of the amount of folks coming in and out of the diner. I also work with children, and I'm acutely aware that parking lots are an area where kids may try to run from their parents up to the car and all this other stuff. So I always try to make sure and be aware. Maybe I'm misremembering, and I got closer to her before coming to a complete stop than I think I did, but I'm fairly certain if I had enough room to drive around her when she refused to move, that I was not overly close to her. Even so, I don't think this interaction warrants what her and her husband did, but this whole situation really freaked me out, and I really hope I never deal with it ever again. Wow, that's really scary, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with that. You tried to do everything possible. You tried to de-escalate it and be like, okay, my bad, I'll be on my way. And you tried to leave and get away from these people, but they literally tracked you down to the very store that you ran to just to try and get your stuff and go along with your day. Like, for starters, that lady clearly had like a chip on her shoulder, and she either wanted to have an argument, or she was trying to blow this out of proportion just to try and like get you in trouble in some kind of way. But regardless of how she felt, there is literally no excuse for the way she acted. This is also one of those moments where having a dash cam or some kind of camera in your car is quite literally your best friend. Like, my God, that would have changed everything. If this lady really did want to try and like mess around, she would have absolutely found out. Also, in my opinion, I think locking the car door and calling the police while she's screaming at you would have been a better plan than telling her that you're going to call the police, because this behavior absolutely deserves to be punished. This lady's following you from store to store trying to scream at you, making up this story that you tried to hit her with your car. Like, no, that's not what happened at all. That's insane. So truly, I'm so sorry this happened to you, because the way this crazy lady acted was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for confronting my neighbor after they asked my girlfriend to watch their cats, despite knowing that I had planned a surprise getaway for the two of us? Because right now, my girlfriend's upset with the way I handled this, and at this point, I don't know if I'm in the wrong or not. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old male, and I planned a surprise weekend getaway for my girlfriend, and I was excited because I had booked everything in advance, and I kept it a secret for weeks. Well, a couple days before the trip, I casually mentioned to my neighbors that I had planned something special for the weekend, and that my girlfriend would be out of town. Well, the neighbor didn't say much, and just kind of nodded, and I didn't think much of it. Well, later that day, my neighbor asked my girlfriend if she was busy over the weekend, and if she could look after their cats while they went away. And my girlfriend, being the nice person that she is, agreed without any hesitation, assuming that she didn't have any plans. Well, fast forward to the weekend, weekend, and I finally reveal the surprise trip to my girlfriend, and she is absolutely thrilled. But then she remembers she agreed to look after the neighbor's cats. She then apologizes, and now we're stuck because she feels bad backing out of the commitment. Well, I was furious because I had already told the neighbors about the surprise weekend. They knew we were going away, but still asked her to do them a favor. I eventually confronted the neighbor, and I ended up shouting at them for putting my girlfriend in an awkward situation when they knew that we had plans. Well, my girlfriend now thinks that I overreacted, and the neighbor is upset with me for being rude. But I feel like I was justified because I had planned this special weekend and it got completely ruined. But now I'm starting to second guess myself. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what your neighbors did is so rude. They knew that the both of you would not be available that weekend, and yet they still go specifically to your girlfriend and say, hey, can you watch our cats for the weekend? We're gonna be away. And it almost seems like they did that on purpose to ruin your plans. And that's crazy to me. Like, why would they do that? This was supposed to be a surprise getaway. That's not something you just forget overnight and you're like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. Like, I'm sure hundreds of dollars went into that, and now these people just completely ruined it. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think the way they tried to ruin your plans is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for not being open to the idea of changing my first name simply because my foster parents don't like it? Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old male and I'm a foster kid. I was taken from my mom 3 years ago because she's not doing good mentally, and it wasn't considered safe for me to live with her. My current foster parents are the ones that I hope to stay with until I turn 18. They're the best I've ever had, and I bounced around a lot, especially in my first year. But there is something that came up that now I'm wondering about. So my name, for the sake of the story, is Ryder, and my foster parents don't outright say that they hate it, but I think I saw my foster mom cringe at my name before. My foster dad asked me when we first met what my middle name was, and I guess that wasn't a name that he liked either. So they call me Rye, and I think sometimes they tried to say my name's Ryan instead of Ryder. Well, a month ago, they had asked me if I had ever considered changing my first name when I turned 18 to something more sophisticated sounding. They even said Ryan could be an idea since it is close and they share a nickname, but I told them I liked my name and I didn't ever think of changing them. They didn't say any more then, but a week later, they told me they had thought a lot about my future and they worried my name would be something that holds me back. My foster mom said it sounds so lewd when said fast, and they felt I deserved better than that, but I told them that it didn't bother me and I liked that my mom had chosen my name, and that was the end of it again. But then last week they brought it up again and they showed me these articles on the importance of a name, of naming babies for adult life instead of being cute or fun as kids. They told me they couldn't make me do it, which I knew, but they would like me to strongly consider it so I could have the chance at a professional future and being taken seriously. They said they would hate to see me passed over for jobs because of my name, and that they feel like a much older me wouldn't find the name as cool as I do now. They asked if I trust them, and I said yeah, and they said if I do, I should really give some thought to what I could change my name to that would be a better name for me as an adult. I told them I was really never going to be okay with that, and I felt like it was a waste of time and would just get me stuck with some name that I wouldn't like. They then asked me why I was so okay with dismissing my future and why I didn't even want to try when they were doing all they could to help me out. And right then I could tell that it really got to them that I was still so against it. So am I the jerk for not wanting to change my name? What should I do? No, of course you're not the jerk. It is insane that they're really trying to be like, oh yeah, you need to change your name. We don't like your name as it is. It's got to be something different. Like, that's insane and that doesn't make any sense. The name Ryder is a completely normal name. Any kind of lewd assumption is on them, not on you. So if I was in your shoes, I would not change my name for a second, because honestly, their logic is completely flawed. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not using my inheritance from my parents to try and take care of my husband's family? Because right now he is very upset, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for about 31 years. We purchased his parents' farm several years ago and paid for it with a mortgage. We have since paid that mortgage off, and we also built our forever home on the farm, and it is also paid for, and we raise cattle on the farm. His family is always asking for help, and this is really his sisters specifically, and a couple of his nephews. For context, we took care of his father, mother, and Down syndrome sister when nobody else in the family would take care of them. We were the only ones of his siblings who still had young young children at home, but we felt that if we didn't take care of them, the state was going to step in and take them away. In my family, you take care of your family, so we took them in and never looked back. However, I think his family resented us for this and somehow feels like they are owed something because we own the family farm, and for some reason, my husband thinks that he has to take care of his other sisters, even though there's nothing wrong with them except that they have low IQs. Now on to the issue at hand. I have inherited a decent amount of money from my parents, and my husband doesn't know the specifics and is upset that I won't disclose the amount. He doesn't have access to the account, and he wants me to take some of the money and build a house on our farm for his sisters to live in, so they won't have to pay for rent anymore or even live in apartments. He wants us to pay their property taxes and insurance because he says they won't be able to afford that, but they can pay their utilities. And he doesn't want to charge them rent. But seriously, why should I use my inheritance that my parents worked their butts off to earn and pass on to me so that my husband's lazy sisters can sit in a brand new house on their family's farm and never have to pay property tax or insurance or even rent? I feel like this is my money and I shouldn't have to spend it on his family. I want to put the majority of it in trust funds to our 2 children so I can pass it on to them. And to be honest, I am seriously thinking about taking my inheritance and getting a divorce and living happily ever after. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think it's insane that your husband is like, oh yeah, give me your inheritance so I can use it for my sisters. Because this literally is not his money. And I can understand him wanting to take care of his sisters, but it honestly seems like he's focusing on them instead of, I don't know, his children. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be upset as well. Am I the jerk for telling my parents to think about whether they want to stay with me after my mom gave me the silent treatment literally over nothing? Here's what happened. I'm a 31-year-old female and I live on another continent from my parents. We have a rocky relationship because my mother is controlling and throws fits when she doesn't get her way. My dad is unfortunately an enabler and goes with the angle of saying, oh, it's your fault, you should apologize for upsetting your mother. And trust me, he does this every single time. Well, recently they came to stay in my 400 square foot studio apartment with me, despite me saying they might be more comfortable in a hotel. For cultural reasons, I'm from an Asian family, and my mom thinks that she needs to come rearrange my kitchen and cook food for me, and that I should be grateful and revert to the powerlessness of my childhood. For example, she decides what I eat for every meal, and I get questioned about when I'm leaving the house and when I'm coming back home. Well, I came back from work yesterday, and the water was out without any kind of warning. I got slightly upset, as my landlord has been guilty of doing this kind of thing before, all without any kind of 24-hour notice. As I was putting in the work order, I muttered under my breath about how annoying it was, and I was clearly very frustrated. Well, my mom started telling me to calm down, and then she started to say, why do you always get so worked up about these things? Now, I was already very frustrated, so I calmly said, don't tell me to calm down. I have the right to be upset about this. My feelings are valid. And trust me when I say this, I did not raise my voice. Well, my mom hates when I say things like this, so she responded by throwing whatever she was holding to the ground and giving me the silent treatment. And before she started that, she said to me, well, I have the right to feel many things too. How dare you talk to me that way? Then she gave me the silent treatment for the rest of the night, including refusing to eat dinner. This morning they left for a short trip, but will be coming back to stay with me later. And as we were waiting for the taxi, I asked my mom a little incredulously if she was going to continue giving me the silent treatment when she came back. Well, she didn't even respond. So I said to her, this is the one time I'm going to bring it up. I'm not going to keep asking about it, and there's not much point in coming to visit me if you're going to ignore me the entire time. So my mom said to me, fine, then we won't be staying with you when we get back. We'll make alternate arrangements. My dad then started laying into me about how it's my fault because I was upset and I upset her yesterday by throwing a tantrum, and now apparently I was trying to bully her into speaking to me. So I said back to him, if you really feel that way, then maybe you should think about whether you want to stay with me when you get back. So am I the jerk for saying this? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Your mom and dad are completely out of their mind if they think this is appropriate behavior. For starters, your mom and dad sound incredibly controlling. Like, that sounds obnoxious and I would never want to deal with that ever. Like, that seriously must be so stressful. And the way your mom was acting when you were upset about the water being out, that is so weird and it's just so unacceptable. I mean, it's almost as if she was trying to find a reason to be upset, and it just doesn't make any sense in the slightest. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and hopefully for your sake, you're able to get away from your parents and live a life without your parents trying to get in the way. Am I the jerk for refusing to plan my wedding around my stepsister's schedule, all because my mom has constantly made us do that all throughout our childhood. Here's what happened. My fiance and I are planning our wedding, and we set the date not too long ago. My mom reached out after learning the date, and she was all panicked and told me that my stepsister couldn't make it and I should call her up and check for different dates to find out when would work better. Well, I told her that that's not happening and that our date is the date that we've chosen. If my stepsister can't make it, then the world won't end. My mom was taken aback by my response, and she actually asked me how I could say that. She told me a sibling or any immediate family member missing a wedding is a big deal. Now, for a bit of background information, my dad died when I was 6 and when my brother was 5. When I was 8 years old, our mom told us that she had a boyfriend, and when I was 10 years old, she remarried. Her husband had my stepsister with his ex-wife, and they shared custody. Our plans once my mom remarried revolved around my stepsister. Christmas every other year was celebrated at a different time, all because she was with her mom and not with us. Family parties were missed if she wasn't around because mom was pissed at anyone in the extended family who didn't make sure that my stepsister could be there. She would tell my brother and me that we should wait to do something for our stepsister to be there, or she insisted on it and refused to let us go without her. And honestly, we resented it. And we did speak up, but mom said immediate family needed to be there for Christmas, for example. I told her she wasn't my immediate family, so I did not need to wait. My mom always resented the fact that we weren't with her every Christmas Eve because we would be with our paternal family, because thankfully our grandparents won some court-ordered time. But the thing is, she never made everything stop for us though. She would just tell us we could choose to be with the family or we could be going on with other people. And when she would say other people, she was meaning our family. Over time it got worse, with her saying, okay, well, why did you see this movie without your stepsister? Why go to the arcade this weekend instead of waiting for the other weekend so she can join? And this honestly was just such insanity. It really did a lot of harm to our relationship with my mom. Neither of us wanted or needed our stepsister included to enjoy it. Neither of us wanted to be forced to plan stuff around her, but we had no choice. Well, fast forward, and that is not how things are anymore. So needless to say, my mom was shocked that I put my foot down so strongly about it. She mentioned the immediate family and sibling thing, and I told her that I never once considered my stepsister my sibling or even my immediate family, and I will no longer plan things around her simply because her attendance is not essential to me. My mom started freaking out on the phone and saying it would really hurt her stepdaughter and husband's feelings to hear this, and how she wanted us all to be together for something as big as a wedding. She even said that she would pay the difference for a different day, but I said no. I told her that my days of catering to my stepsister's schedule are over, and right then and there, my mom went nuts on the phone. I ended the call and I'm dodging her calls and text messages now because she is very mad. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, but honestly, I am so glad that you stood up for yourself. Obviously, as a kid, you couldn't do that, and it sounds like your mom had a big control over what you could and couldn't do, especially when it came to whether or not your stepsister was involved. So for your mom to literally sit there and be like, you need to pick a different date for your wedding, like that is so insanely toxic, it's not even funny. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because what your mom is demanding is absolutely ridiculous. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that the world doesn't revolve around her and her kids? Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old female and I'm the mother of 2. The other day was my son's 5th birthday, and my husband and I threw a party at our home. And this party has caused a bit of a rift between me and my husband's twin sister, who we will call Eve. Eve and I don't have much in common, and usually I only see her during the holidays and special occasions. She and my husband are not particularly close either. For context, Eve has 3 kids, ages 9, 5, and 2. A few days before the party, Eve messaged me that she may not be going because it will be during the youngest nap time. I told her that her kid is more than welcome to sleep at our home, and we can put her up in our youngest bed. Eve said that she would think about it, but she would probably just not come. Now, Eve didn't message me or my husband again, so we assumed that she was not coming, but eventually she did turn up on the day. Maybe 5 minutes after she arrived, she asked if the bed was set up for the youngest, and I explained that we weren't expecting them, so I'll need a few minutes to get it ready. Eve then asked if we don't keep our kids' bedrooms tidy, which honestly really irritated me. Now, Eve's daughter did sleep fine. She did fuss a bit waking up, but at least the nap time issue was solved. She then saw the cake that we had for our son, which was hidden in our kitchen, so he wouldn't see it before it was time to blow out the candles. She said that her kids will not eat that kind of cake, which was a lemon cake if that really matters. Now, I know that a lot of kids are probably not keen on lemon cake, but it's what my son likes. So So I told Eve that we did have some candy in our kitchen that her kids could have, just so they didn't feel left out of having a treat. They ended up leaving abruptly before we got the cake out and only said goodbye to my husband. But then they came back with chocolate cupcakes from the corner shop, and they literally started serving them to their kids. This caused some of the younger kids at the party to start fussing because they wanted the cupcakes too, and there wasn't enough to go around. Eve also repeatedly connected her phone to our Bluetooth speakers so that she could play some of her music without asking us, and this is despite the fact that we already had music playing. And I asked her to stop because it was making the house sound like a mishmash of music, and she just responded by saying that I'm being a grump. Well, I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and after the party, I told her that the world doesn't revolve around her and her kids. She then called me selfish and said that I need to lighten up, and she and her family very quickly left after that. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law were still at our house, which really made things quite awkward. Eve has been giving my husband the cold shoulder ever since, and I'm now wondering if I'm the jerk in the situation, because now I'm really not sure how to make things right. No, you're not the jerk here. Eve not only didn't plan anything properly, but she also came off as really entitled. Like seriously, that's not okay. And just look at the way she acted at this birthday party. She was being super weird and just super rude. Like she even left to get cupcakes all because she didn't like the lemon cake that you were serving. Like that's super rude and super unacceptable. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because Eve was being a brat and she was not being considerate of everybody in attendance. Am I the jerk for freaking out when my mom asked me to let her reschedule my birthday plans, also that she could spend more time with her stepdaughter instead of me? Because right now I feel very neglected, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 15-year-old female, and for the longest time it was just me and my mom. I never knew my dad or really cared that I didn't know him, and I was really close with my mom, and I didn't want or need anything else. Our relationship was good, but I always sort of felt like she saw spending time with me as an obligation, and that she didn't want to do it as much as me. When I was 12 years old, she told me she had a boyfriend, and that she wanted him to move in with us alongside his daughter. Then she went on to talk about all the Zoom calls that she had with her, and that she had spent some time with her, and how she was a really great kid. She was the best. How she could be my little sister, and how my mom already saw her as another daughter. When I met my mom's husband, he asked a ton of questions about me because mom told him very little, yet my mom had listed off a bunch of stuff about his daughter, and for the sake of the story, we'll call this daughter Kelly. My mom spent all of moving in day being all around Kelly, and ended up leaving me with her husband. He didn't say much, but he just asked me for help once, and then I went to my room. Mom took Kelly out for a special dinner, while her husband and I got other stuff, and I got a frozen pizza and he made some sandwiches. After they moved in, mom spent a lot of time with Kelly. She still spent time with me, but she seemed so excited to spend time with Kelly, and I never saw her show that same excitement for me. I asked my mom why she was so much more excited about being with Kelly, and she told me that was the green-eyed monster talking, and she wasn't more excited to spend time with Kelly. I brought it up a few more times, but mom always said it was just my jealousy talking. But the thing is, I was and I am jealous, but I don't think I was seeing any green-eyed monster. She spoils Kelly and goes out of her way to get Kelly gifts. She boasts about all the stuff that she does too, and I never hear her mention me, which mom said was because I'm older and that she has mentioned me some of the time. My mom was supposed to take me to this place in November to celebrate my birthday, and it's a limited time thing happening, so we can't do it another time. But yesterday, my mom sat me down after school and asked me to reschedule our plans so she can take Kelly to a concert on that day, because Kelly will be with her grandparents the other days her thing is on. And at this point, I just freaked out, and I asked my mom how she could make me give up something for Kelly because she knows that she can't reschedule our plans. I told her that I knew she liked Cammy more, and I never should have tried talking to her before because this stuff was just all the proof. My mom told me to calm down, and she said she was ashamed of my reaction. She told me I was too old to be acting like that and getting so jealous of sharing her. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really does seem like your mom is playing favorites with your new stepsister. Like, I can understand spending time to get to know her, but at this point, she's basically moving your life around and prioritizing Kelly over you. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled neighbors demand that we extend our retainer wall, stating that if we don't follow their exact orders, they will get us in trouble by reporting us to the city. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, this is really a stupid situation. I've lived in this house with my grandparents for about 6 years. When we moved in, we had this awful wooden retaining wall facing the neighbor's property. Her property is downhill from ours, so the retaining wall keeps our yard from washing away into hers. We found out last year that the wall was rotting and needed to be replaced, so we recently had it replaced with these beautiful retaining stones. We also extended the wall past where the previous wall had been. Now, we can't take it all the way to the street because of the city's guidelines, but it goes far enough. It could be extended by maybe 3 feet, but we couldn't afford to go any farther. Well, the neighbor who we had gotten along with until now didn't like any of this. She complained to us that our wall wasn't long enough and her yard was going to wash away, and she already had rivers running through her yard. We live on a street with no sidewalks, so everyone has ditches for drainage. She never cleans hers despite having huge trees dropping sticks and leaves into it, so her yard floods when it rains, and yet she blames us for that. She then said she could pay for the landscapers to extend the wall and then showed my grandma some brown retaining stones she said that she could get to try and finish the wall. Our wall is gray, so of course my grandma said no. The neighbor said that she couldn't deal with it and didn't want to be a jerk, but that she would report us to the city if she had to. So my grandma just said, okay, go ahead, and then she walked away. But seriously, what makes her think that she has any right to mess with our wall? Our landscapers even removed a stump from her property for her for free, and she never even thanked them for it. As far as we know, she either hasn't reported us to the city, or the city told her to pound sand. She's tried to make conversations with me, but I simply won't talk to her. I have too much to worry about without having her try to manipulate me into talking to my grandma. Yeah, I've had neighbors like this in the past, where they literally will complain about anything in front of them. I mean, would they rather have those stones lining the property, or some crappy fence that's literally rotting away? So good for you guys for deciding not to get involved with this person, because chances are there's nothing wrong with your wall, and they're probably just looking for something to complain about. My entitled Karen neighbor is constantly demanding favors out of me, while also being loud and obnoxious at all hours of the night. And I seriously hope that I never have to deal with these people ever again. Here's what happened. So I'm in an area of Florida that gets a lot of tourists. However, we live in a family neighborhood, and 90% of the people here are full-time residents, with hardly any snowbirds and 2 schools right in the neighborhood. So essentially, it's a normal suburb. With a Gulf Coast 10 minutes away, we moved into this house in 2022. We are pretty quiet people, and we know the neighbors around us and have friendly chats in the yard, but that's about it. Basically, we like to just do our own thing. Well, the house next to us was bought by a couple from Maryland in February of 2023. We were happy to see the old neighbors leave, as they were an older couple that had nothing better to do than scream at each other. So, new people are doing stuff at the house, and when I'm in my side yard, I introduce myself to the wife. The wife seems super chatty, and basically told me her life story. She goes on to tell me that they can't really afford this house that they bought for $500,000, but then they told me they're going to be doing short-term renting for the next 5 years, just so they can try and cover the mortgage. Now, we used to live in an area that allowed short-term rental, and we specifically moved to a home that had no HOA or short-term rental. We hated living next door to a house that was always a party house, and we never knew who would be there. So I tell the wife that you are not allowed to do short-term rental here, but she just laughs and says, my realtor told me that we can, so I'm pretty sure we can. So, not wanting an argument, I just shrug my shoulders and I wish her good luck and go back to my garden. 3 days later, she's knocking on my door, asking for my phone number in case she needs to get a hold of me. Then she tells me that she is allowed to do 30 days or more rentals, and that this is what she's planning on doing. Now, I agree because I called the city myself as well, and I wished her good luck, and then I went along my way. Over the next few months, I communicate with her through text messaging. She would ask me all the time to meet the HVAC guy, the sprinkler guy, or water the flowers, or to check and see if the last renters had left, and other random garbage. My husband is getting annoyed with her and saying that she needs to hire a local management company of some kind, and I'm really beginning to see his point. Fast forward, and I go on a trip to visit my family, and my husband stayed behind. He calls me on day 2 and tells me the new renters are so loud. They have parties until 1 in the morning, they are throwing pool toys over the fence, leaving beer cans in the grassy area between our driveways, and just generally being rude and obnoxious. My husband, being the quiet dude that he is, just puts on headphones and minded his own business. Well, eventually I came home on day 6 around midnight, and I was exhausted and ready to see my husband, and I wanted to kiss my dogs and go to bed. But it is a Tuesday night, and the renters next door are super loud in the pool. They're playing music, they're screeching while driving, they're yelling and laughing, and if this was 12 o'clock noon, then I wouldn't have a problem. But it is midnight on a Tuesday. I'm tired and I'm pissed. So I go to the front door and I knock for about 5 minutes. But then I realize, oh my god, I'm so stupid. Everyone is in the backyard partying. So I finally yell over the fence,
what are you doing? Do you mind keeping it down? Well, some younger guy walks out and tells me to calm down, and I tell him to get lost, and that if the music and the yelling isn't down, I'm gonna call the sheriff. Well, guess who was at the house? It was the wife, the owner of the house. She then sends me a nasty text message, and she clearly sent it right as she was very drunk because it made no sense, and she essentially told me that if I ever threatened her son-in-law again, she would personally see to it that my time here was ruined, whatever that's supposed to mean. So I go to bed, and I send her a perfectly calm and pleasant text the next day, and I basically told her to kick rocks and lose my number. And wouldn't you guess it, she never responded. Well, fast forward, and guess who called me today? This lady had the audacity to ask if I could go into her house and help her out by testing the modem because her Wi-Fi is down and she cannot control anything in the house, namely the cameras, the door locks, or the thermostat. Well, I told this idiot that my services were no longer available and that she would need to call someone else from here on out. And when I said that, she got all huffy and she said to me, well, that was rude. I need someone right now. Well, I'm sorry, pumpkin. I'm not here to be at your beck and call. I am a helper at heart, but you definitely pissed off the wrong person. Yeah, this entitled Karen absolutely had this coming. She was not only an awful neighbor right off the get-go, but she also treated you like her personal servant and tried to demand unreasonable things out of you. Like seriously, who does she think she is? But despite all of that, I love the way you handled this. You told them straight up, you can either shut up or I'm gonna call the cops. Because seriously, with people like this might be the only way to get through to them and be like, wait, you cannot treat me like that. So good for you for standing up for yourself, and hopefully this lady doesn't give you any more problems. Because from the sounds of it, she sounds like an absolute nightmare to live next to.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My company's new entitled CEO demands that all of his employees swear loyalty to him and only him. So we decide to maliciously comply by literally throwing this guy a curveball he never expected. Here's what happened. So I'm a small worker bee in a company that got bought out by a much larger company earlier this year. Even though we were a small company, the teams were flexible and everyone helped each other. And the company was profitable, but not to the new ownership. Apparently to them, our company was awful and needed to be immediately fixed with structure, hierarchy, and order. The managers I've worked so well with over the years are gone. And the new owners promised no change and that there was nothing to worry about, saying that everything will be the same, except that within a month, all the experienced managers who made the workplace so great to work for are let go. And what's even worse than that is that they've been replaced by emotionless walking husks resembling ghosts who have hammers as their only tool, and all of us are the nails. Never mind the incessant preaching of company spirit and loyalty and respect and company values. I mean, we all moan at these pep talks. We all yawn at the town halls. But then they make much less subtle threats. They say to us, oh, you're not a team player if you don't do all this other stuff. You need to work overtime or else that's not fair for everybody else. And they'll also actually complain if you leave on time again. The culture certainly has changed. I mean, for one, I didn't even dare to take off early to pick up my kids from school anymore. But finally, the toxic culture of fear and backstabbing. Every word said against the direction, even off the cuff in some kind of side chit-chat, and every facial expression or nonverbal gesture against the flow are immediately and harshly met with reprimands. For example, another worker bee was recently let go for restructuring despite having stellar work performance. And I guess it's because he just couldn't keep his thoughts to himself. So hopefully I painted a good picture of what life is underneath the iron fist that we deal with. Many of us are contemplating leaving, but the job market is quite depressing in our area. The cost of living is high, and we are afraid of being the neck that sticks out. So everyone just suffers in silence. The company recently appointed a new CEO who, in his opening introduction to everybody, demanded undivided loyalty to him specifically. It means we must follow his every direction. It means we must smile in his presence and be super upbeat. I think the expectation here is that we must cry like North Korean women in the presence of the supreme leader. So you want absolute loyalty? Well, I believe loyalty goes both ways, but we can show you loyalty if that's what you want. So we all got the message loud and clear. You want us to play Oscar-winning actors and actresses instead of actually getting work done and speaking our minds to make the company better? Sure thing, you got it. Now, for those of us who read and trust each other, we would have hours-long meetings with each other on topics that sound important but don't actually matter. We make sure our days are jam-packed full of discussions on how to move initiatives forward, but never actually discuss anything of substance and never have aggressive action items to follow up on. And of course, we absolutely never forget to praise the leadership in the meeting minutes. Off the books though, there's lots of small talks, especially for the sake of team building. Whenever we're questioned by somebody higher up, we pull out the corporate roadmap and point point to the initiatives we spent so many hours working on. We would defend our time with a budget that recently got rolled out and be like, look, we're doing what we need to do. We've even gone as far as requesting additional resources in next year's budget just to ensure that our very busy initiatives continue to make headway. So basically, we're creating the public perception of us being busy without actually doing anything. We were a lean, small company, but now we're a fat busybody where everything is bloated and compartmentalized. We shut our faces and we nodded. We clapped the hardest after every presidential speeches, and as a result, we lost money in the last several months. And I guess that's the price you pay to give one-sided loyalty, because trust me, all of us are still definitely looking for other jobs. Yeah, that sounds like an awful place to work at. Seriously, you've got a CEO being like, you have to be loyal to me. Like, that is so weird, and I just will never understand how someone would act like that. So good for you and your coworkers for sticking it back to this weirdo, and hopefully all of you can find a better job sooner than later. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my neighbors for half the cost of fixing a fence on our property line, as they refuse to give me any kind of invoice to prove that the job has actually been done? Here's what happened. Ever since we moved into our house, the fence between us and the neighbors, let's call them Sharon and Will, has been leaning towards their side. Despite no changes since then, Sharon recently demanded that it be fixed because they think it'll fall over any day now. Sharon had a landscaper that was already doing a job for them, and she said that he could fix the fence as well. Now, he couldn't speak English, so Sharon translated, but I didn't really understand what they were going to do. All I got was that they were going to use concrete on the posts. I told them that I also knew a builder, and I got him to take a look as well. My guy came along and thought it was better just to rebuild. He estimated the cost of materials would be about $1,000, and then we can negotiate labor costs just a little bit. I told Sharon the next day, and she just waved it off, saying her guy could do it for like $500. He was apparently coming back after the weekend, so I just waited for a proper quote. Well, 1 week later, Sharon texted to say that the work was done. The price was $600 and asked me to send her $300, meaning that she never gave me a proper quote. I told her I'm happy to split the cost, but I asked for an invoice and a description of the work done. She said that it was a cash job, and then she said to me, I thought you were my neighbor. Just give me the money whenever you're free. But I reiterated that because this concerns my property, I need a record of the work done and payments. But she again said that because it was a cash-only job, that there won't be an official invoice of any kind. I also asked about warranty, and she said it would be for 12 months. Later on, I had a look at what they had actually done, and all I saw was just 2 temporary wooden posts supporting the fence. The guy probably dug around the problem fence post and poured some concrete around it to fix the fence post in place. So needless to say, it did not look like a $600 job. I ignored her for a week while seeking advice from my local community center, who said that the costs of repairing a fence on a boundary are shared by the properties concerned, and that I'm within my rights to ask for proof of work done. I told Sharon that I was very unhappy with how she had gone about things, and that when dealing with a neighbor, there is a responsibility to make things proper and keep official records. I told her straight up, I cannot make any payments comfortably until I get that invoice. My main concern is that Sharon might be getting us to pay more. Sharon and Will look to be in their late 40s, and we're in our late 20s, so they might think that we're some kind of easy target. The landscaper was already working on another project for them, so we may just be helping them cover their cost. I'm also unhappy with a warranty being only for 12 months, as it really seems too short for a fence. Lastly, I'm concerned that if Sharon and Will move anytime soon, and the fence falls down again, then I would have no way of contacting or communicating with the landscaper, or having any proof they had a job done in the first place. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk for wanting an invoice from these people, because it really does sound like they're trying to scam you. Like seriously, all you need is like some kind of like written document saying how much it's going to cost, as well as, I don't know, a copy of the warranty. Like if there really is a warranty for what, 12 months, then there should be something written down to prove that, shouldn't there? And I just love the fact that Sharon's trying to be like, oh, we're neighbors, just pay me. Like what's the problem? Like that kind of guilt tripping is not going to fly in my book. And it's so good to see that the original poster is not going to take that either, because in my opinion, she's absolutely trying to play you. And unless you get something in writing stating this is how much it's going to cost, then in my opinion, you should not have to pay them until you receive it. Am I the jerk for finally telling off my mother-in-law after the way she's been treating me for several years now? Because right now my husband says that I'm at fault, but at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I are in our early 30s, and we've been married for a few years, but we've been together for 11. Throughout this time, we've often argued about my in-laws' behavior, but more specifically my mother-in-law. There are many examples I could make, but to sum it up, she has been controlling not only to my husband, but also to me, even going as far as pressuring my husband to make me do what she wanted regarding situations that didn't concern her at all. She's also been disrespectful disrespectful towards me, as well as overall invasive and demanding. I mean, you name it, she's done it. The only thing she has not done is directly insult me to my face. I kept telling my husband I was over their behavior and to please put a stop to it, but he never really acted decisively, so my mother-in-law never really stopped. Time after time, I would put up a happy front and bite my tongue not to cause any drama, but because everything just keeps piling up, I'm always on the verge of blowing up whenever I'm around them. I told my husband I would like to limit contact at least for a while, but he insists that we go and visit. My husband is also aware of how much I'm affected by this. So anyways, we meet up and my mother-in-law starts with her usual antics. Now I stay quiet until I've had enough, and then I start talking back to her. Now I did not insult her, but I wouldn't let anything slide like I usually do, and highlighted every inappropriate or invasive comment. Well, when I did this, she was surprised and asked me what came onto me, stating that I never acted like this and so on and so forth. Well, in a fit of rage, and mind you, I wasn't yelling, and while speaking calmly and slowly, I told her that she's been disrespecting me for years and that this is what she was getting now, and that now that she's made her bed, she now has to lay in it. Well, things got tense and we ended up leaving. I am upset, but finally I feel liberated for standing up for myself. My husband seems torn, and obviously my mother-in-law is livid. My husband has now said that he agrees and understands my emotional state on the matter, but also wants to keep the peace and to just apologize. Well, I refused and said I would only be open to revisit the relationship if I see some changes and effort to at least be cordial and mutually respectful, while also stating that I absolutely will not apologize for anything I said because I mean it and I would do it again. Now, I also reminded him that he had many chances to stand up to them, and that I also said no one involved would enjoy it if I had to stand up for myself, and he just never took me seriously. I also said I never insulted her or yelled at her, so apologizing for my reaction to her comments sounds incredibly backwards. So am I the jerk for what I said and for not budging on this? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk because this mother-in-law clearly had it coming. Like, you explained this to your husband multiple times. Either he can fix this situation or else you're going to fix it. And from the sounds of it, he definitely knew that you are not the person to trifle with. So no, you are definitely not the jerk because the way your mother-in-law was acting was completely inappropriate. My boyfriend is constantly teasing me with his money by saying that he's going to buy me all these expensive things but never following through. And at this point, I am so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years now, and I've noticed a weird pattern with his enjoyment of teasing me with luxury items. He has a good job that apparently earns a good living, and he has bragged in the past, stating that last year he made over $1 million in just his bonuses. Now, I say that he apparently earns that much because I'm honestly not sure if he's being truthful or not. I will say he goes all out on date nights with dinner bills between $400 to $500, so I know he actually does make a decent income. However, he may have exaggerated, and it's not like it matters to me at all. I don't care what he earns or what he spends on me. I'm just pointing out the picture he has painted himself for clarity. He always makes comments about buying us matching Rolexes or buying me a Porsche one day, which I always shrugged off. He'd start making those same comments in front of my family to the point where they've pointed out to me that he comes off as very phony. Now, before last Christmas, he walked me into a YSL store and asked me to pick out my Christmas present. So I excitedly tried on bags and eventually chose my favorite. He then took down all the details for the sales lady, and I left the shop all giddy thinking that would be my Christmas gift. A couple weeks go by and my mom spilled the beans that he had texted her and my sister pictures of expensive jewelry from somewhere else, basically asking for her opinion on what to get me for Christmas. So admittedly, my expectations were definitely raised. Christmas comes and I open my gifts, and they were all just normal items. Stuff like perfume, lip gloss, and pajamas, which again, I have no problem with. I just think it was strange to raise my hopes like that and also involve my family in some kind of way. And my mom and sister were very confused when I told them what I got. Then a month later, I visited him for our 1-year anniversary, and one morning I gave him his card and a gift, which was a digital picture frame of our pictures and some memories from the whole year. And he says thank you, but doesn't even give me a card in return. Instead, he takes me out and actually takes me into a Cartier store, which is the same store he was supposedly going to get me jewelry from. So I thought to myself, oh okay, maybe he wanted to get me this for our anniversary instead of Christmas. So he has me trying on a bunch of different pieces and asking me to pick out my favorites, and when I do, he says, okay, maybe I'll get it for your birthday, and then we just leave the store. So I was very lost and confused yet again. So I asked him straight up if he even got me a card for our anniversary, and he said no. And when he said that, I was really hurt about the lack of effort made, and then this weird show of having me try on jewelry after opening his own gift that morning. It was just so weird to me. Then on my birthday, we weren't together, and my gift arrived in the mail, and it was just an Amazon Prime box with slippers, a Stanley cup, and a smart garden, which again is not a big deal, but I just don't understand why he keeps getting my hopes up for no reason. He also does weird things like getting mad that I take the subway. He'll say it's not safe and that he doesn't want his girlfriend in that position, and so I just explain that I can't afford to take Ubers everywhere, especially going to and from work every single day. But when I say that, it's almost like he can't even begin to comprehend that. So he brought this up in front of my sister one day, and she is way more bold and blunt than I am. So she says to him, well, if you don't want her taking the subway, why don't you put down your credit card in her Uber app right now so you know that she can afford it and is always safe? Well, he didn't even acknowledge her and just looked down at his phone. Like, what is the psychology behind this kind of behavior? Why do you think he constantly teases me in this way? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, your boyfriend is a liar. This guy is completely full of it. And seriously, anybody with half a brain can see that this guy is just not telling the truth at all. He does not make that much money. Like, this guy is completely talking right out of his rear end, and he's literally making all of this up. He doesn't make millions of dollars off of bonuses alone, and he definitely does not make anything close to that with just his normal salary itself. Like, this guy is straight up lying to you. There's no other way to put it. He takes you to these expensive places and has you try on jewelry and clothing, while also promising like Rolex watches and a Porsche one day, all under the guise that you'll continue to believe this stupid lie. But that's exactly what it is. This guy's lying to you. He doesn't have any of that, and he's just continuing this act because he literally put himself in a corner. So there is no situation where he's teasing you with his money. This guy just straight up doesn't have money, and in my opinion, that is a massive red flag. My crazy entitled mom is claiming that she's the rightful owner of my house, despite the fact that she and my dad have been renting from me. Things have gotten so bad that I'm now considering evicting them just to finally get her out of my house. Here's what happened. Okay, so I bought a small starter home during the housing market crash, and I did this completely by myself. I lived there for the better part of a decade before buying a larger home with my now husband. My parents really wanted to live there because it was small and very easy to maintain. They have foreclosed in the past, so there's no way anyone would ever give them a mortgage. Also, my dad is retired and my mom just doesn't work. Now, they wanted to rent from me. For a discounted rent, they paid off the mortgage, let's say maybe $50,000, by tapping into a six-figure inheritance that my parents got. So a lease was written up, explaining that it was a prepayment of rent, and their rent would only be the taxes and insurance, and they would pay $350 a month, basically only going up when taxes and insurance go up. We signed the lease with all the other stuff involved and had it notarized, and that's how it's been for quite a while now. So to be clear, I'm not making a single dime on this house. I recently told them the rent would be going up by about $3, all because of a slight increase in the insurance, and my mom lost her mind when I said that. She is seriously claiming that I'm hungry for money and that she was going to rip out everything she did, namely the garden and other cosmetic changes to the house, and that I owe her, and I apparently can't evict her because it's her house. She says she's not responsible for the insurance even though our lease says otherwise, and that the insurance hasn't been raised in a decade, which is also completely untrue. She says that I'm trying to make her pay my personal homeowner's insurance, and that a court will show me that and give her my house. Now, we have a notarized lease. They are listed as tenants, and I'm the only one on the deed. My father then demanded the bills to see if I'm ripping them off, which, by the way, the house is a commutable distance from Manhattan, so a studio apartment around here would be over like $1,500. This is a house with a large yard for a dog. I can easily get $2,000 for this house, even before they moved in. I send them copies of the taxes and insurance showing only their address, and it shows that I'm even charging them discounted taxes. So I told them to add it all together and then divide by 12, and I told my mother go ahead and contact a lawyer so they can hopefully slap her straight. I guess my father agreed with me because now she is divorcing my father. Now, I've even told my dad that I will evict them, but my mom is dead set on a judge giving her the house while also trying to prove that I'm being money hungry and that apparently everybody's gonna see it. My husband said to print out rental listings in the area and slam it on the table and tell them to decide. They can either have $350 a month or they can try to rent for $2,000. The choice is theirs because honestly, right now, I seriously want these people out of my house. Wow, these people really do sound like a nightmare. First of all, you gave them the deal of a lifetime in a city that is already overpriced and overcrowded. Like seriously, it is so expensive in New York City, so the fact that they got a deal of what, $350 a month for a studio apartment that's close to Manhattan, like that is insane. Like I know people who live in New York City and they would do anything for something like that. So the fact that your parents are so completely obtuse to how lucky they are is honestly so insulting. Not only to you and how much money you could be making off this property, but also the countless other tenants who would be so grateful just to live there and pay out the nose just to be there in the first place. And it's honestly so crazy to me that your mom's like, oh yeah, this is gonna be my house. And it's like, what are you talking about? You're the only one on the deed. She has no claim over it. And it's so smart that you put this all in writing. Like, oh my God. Can you imagine having some kind of like word of mouth situation with her where you tell her, oh yeah, just pay $350 a month. And then she turns around and pulls something like this? Like, this is crazy. This is so overblown. It's not even funny. So truly, for the sake of you and your sanity, I really hope you get her out of your house sooner than later, because it sounds like your dad is slowly seeing the light and he's realizing that yes, his wife is crazy because her behavior is completely out of line and you do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for not wanting to wear slippers in my home just to reduce the noise so that my neighbors don't hear me in my own house? Because right now I am very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old female and I bought a house with my husband in May of this year. It is a townhouse on the edge of our city, and we have neighbors on one side, but the house on the other side is currently empty. Our next door neighbors seem nice enough, but we've only ever talked to them either when we're picking up packages or when they come to complain about the noise. For context, the first weekend we had the house, we decided to have some friends over to build furniture on a Sunday, and then we tried again the next week on a Sunday. As we were building things, one of our neighbors came over to ask us not to do construction on Sunday, all because of the supposed legal quiet hours. But this is simply not true. We were building inside of our house, which is allowed on your own property on Sundays where we live. I was annoyed, but we decided that we would accommodate them and bake them cookies as an apology. Things seemed to be okay after that, but then a couple of months later on a Sunday, my husband was breaking ice cubes out of a tray, and he maybe banged it on the countertop 3 or 4 times. The next thing I know, our neighbor had run over and is now demanding that we not build anything on Sunday again. Now, I didn't say anything, but I was annoyed because since it wasn't even a minute before he came over. So, not wanting to fight, we put up soundproofing in our living room just in case our TV is loud, and generally avoid making sound on Sundays now. It feels a bit like we're walking on eggshells in our own home. Then the other day, I was up trying to get some sleep around midnight, and their TV was blasting so loud that we could hear it in our bedroom. I've heard their TV and music through the walls before, but generally brush it off since it was during the day. This time, it was genuinely too late to be reasonable, and it actually was breaking the law regarding quiet hours. I talked with my husband, and we chose to wait to say anything until we saw them in passing. Well, today my husband picked up some packages from their place and mentioned the noise from the other night. He was told by our neighbor that the walls between our houses were very thin, and they are actually even annoyed by us walking around in our home, and their only recommended solution was for us to wear slippers all the time. Now, my husband thinks this is a good solution, but he already wears house slippers all the time, so it wouldn't be a big change for him. But I personally don't like wearing house slippers, and in my experience, they do very little to stop the sound of footsteps anyways, and I am hesitant to do so just to accommodate something that is a normal part of living so close to people. It's also annoying to me that I feel like we are doing things to accommodate them when this is our space and we should be able to walk around and cook when we want. Either way, we would invite them over for dinner at some point to smooth things over and to try and establish a better relationship. But in the meantime, am I the jerk for not wearing slippers in my own home? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it just seems like you have awful neighbors. These people are literally trying to be like, oh yeah, you're making too much noise. But then when you complain about their noise, they're like, no, you need to wear house slippers. Like, that's ridiculous, and I just can't see a good reason for anybody to act that way. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I just think it's ridiculous that you should have to change your entire routine for people who literally will not do the same for you. Entitled customers keep trying to break into a destroyed shop after a car literally goes through the front of our store, forcing us to close down for months on end. And I've honestly never been treated more poorly in my life simply by trying to keep people safe and keep people from breaking the law. Here's what happened. So a few years ago, a car crashed into the front of my old workplace. It destroyed the entire front of the store, it damaged the building structure, shattered all the glass all over the place, and we had a small fire in the front. Everything really fell apart from there on out, from needing whole repairs done to the store to almost 8 months of cleaning up the mess caused by the inability to legally cover the storefront up until it was able to pass all the inspections, not to mention the complete destruction left in the car's wake. Now, I was on the cleaning crew after we were allowed to enter the building again, and oh my god, I absolutely hated it. And this is not really about the aspect of cleaning it up. That actually went really well. Instead, it was the insane amount of people attempting to enter the building anyways. We had huge signs stating that we were closed. We had no front doors. We had boarded up the hole in the wall, and we had signs stating anyone inside was cleaning and not actually helping letting customers out. But despite all of that, people still snuck in, ripping holes in the temporary boards, trying to get in through the back of the store, or attempting to follow us inside when we threw anything in the dumpster. And when we finally got one part of a door in, people kept trying to get in the locked door. Phone calls demanding a manager for not letting customers in were frequent. We would all answer them and state that we are closed and had no idea when we would be reopening. I mean, at one point, I was even carrying out a part of a car's bumper when I had a woman scream at me for not letting her enter the building. And my only real course of action was to state that we weren't open and to come back in a few months. Eventually, we had to have someone keeping guard of the doors when they were finally put back in, because while they were adding some extra support to our pillars and doing electrical work, people kept walking in and trying to shop. And this is all when we literally had nothing set up, and we still had to throw away the products that we could no longer sell. It was so stupid. Every time we had someone try, we just put up more signs. It was all we really could do. Corporate would straight up tell customers, well, if you're calling about this location, they're literally closed because the building partially collapsed. And this was really the only way that they could tell people on the phone to get lost and to stop trying to get in, or even to get them to stop talking garbage about us for just trying to clean up. We even had to call the police because a few people just refused to leave, some even threatening us while in their cars, with others leaving and coming back when we were on break to attempt to threaten us all then, with others just showing up with a 911 operator on the phone while demanding the operator send officers down to force us to let them in, which, by the way, would have been very illegal to let them in considering the state of the building and the safety gear that we needed just to be inside. I honestly just don't get it. There wasn't any specific age that did it more often, and it really was an equal amount of older folks and people my age, and anywhere in between were just weird about this. But on top of that, plenty of people were also very understanding about it. I just don't understand the weird entitlement to demand some place that's not even open to the public, that you literally can be arrested for unlawfully entering at the time. But even then, you still want to go shopping? I'm honestly not sure what to think about anybody anymore, because the way we got treated was really stupid. Yeah, I think it's one of two things. Either people really are too dumb to realize that the store is absolutely closed, or they just want to run in there and try to rifle through any products that might still be on the shelves. So you basically had your pick of thieves or just complete idiots. But either way, that's really annoying, and I definitely would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for having my neighbor's cars towed out of my garage after they parked it there without my permission? Because right now the entire neighborhood is mad at me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my house is being built in a neighborhood that is a few years old. My lot is one of the few remaining lots, and there are occupied houses surrounding me. The exterior is basically complete, and the contractors are in the process of putting up the drywall. After work the other night, I decided to drive out to inspect the work, and everything really looked fine until I decided to check out my garage. When I opened the door, I saw 2 cars and a minivan parked inside of my garage. So I called the contractor to see if he knew anything about them, and he was just as perplexed as I was. My guess is that one of my neighbors decided to park their cars inside of my garage because there was a slight chance of hail the other night. At first, I was going to leave it alone, but the more I thought about it, the more angry I got. By the time I got to my car, I was steaming mad. So much so that I called a tow company and had them tow all 3 vehicles away. The next morning, my contractor called me and told me the police was there to investigate the theft of the vehicles. I had them put the police on the phone and explain that I was the owner of the property. I had the vehicles towed and gave them the tow company information. My contractor then told me later that the owners of those vehicles were shouting and cussing them out until the police made them leave. I went by after work and a guy confronted me about being such a jerk for having their vehicles towed. He was shouting about how I ruined their day because they missed work and their kids were late to school because of it. He also said it cost almost $1,000 to get all 3 vehicles back, and that according to him, I will be covering the cost. Well, I told him good luck with that, and that he's a jerk for parking in my garage without my permission. We went back and forth until his wife came and pulled him home. Some of my other neighbors came out to watch our argument, and afterwards, some of them told me I was starting off on the wrong foot and that I should be apologizing to that guy. They said that I should be more neighborly and understand that neighbors help each other out. One of them even said that I should have left a note instead of having them towed. So right now it seems that all my neighbors are against me. Now I can see their points, but seriously, did I overreact here? What should I do? No, I don't think you overreacted at all. Who in their right mind would feel justified in parking their car in someone else's garage? First of all, just because the person's not home and you're clearly working on the house doesn't give you blanket permission to do whatever you want with their property. That is so uncalled for, because I guarantee you if you did that to that guy, he would have called the police and thought nothing of it. He would have towed your vehicle the second he saw your car. But the fact that it happened to him is the only reason he's getting upset. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. These people are so backwards it's not even funny. And if anyone's starting off on a wrong foot in this neighborhood, it is quite literally all of your neighbors. Am I the jerk for warning my in-laws to not move to my hometown, all because I knew how toxic that hometown was, and I knew that they would have a bad time just like I did? Here's what happened. So my in-laws moved back in June. They had been planning this move for several months and had their house up on the market before they told my husband and me. They had mentioned the name of a small town they liked and were considering their #1 choice of location. I know the place well because it is my hometown, and I fled that place right as I was turning 17 and I never went back there. There are zero happy memories of my hometown for me, as I was raised in one of those families. The ones that are the talk of everybody in town for all the wrong reasons. I'm the only member of my family who did not go to prison or get in trouble with the law, but people still hated me because of who my family was. Growing up there was a nightmare, and the one friend I had back then got a lot of garbage from everybody just for being friends with me. Teachers treated me like garbage, and she was thrown under the bus alongside me many times. Even her family gave her crap for being friends with me. When all 3 family members were arrested together, I decided I just needed to run away and get far away from there, or I would live in a literal nightmare until I turn 18, and I knew that it would happen. Well, my in-laws always knew that I came from a family that got in trouble with the law a lot, and they also knew that as a result, I had a bad reputation from where I came from. They didn't know my hometown until that came up when they mentioned their move, and I gave them a friendly heads up and a warning that living there and making their association to me known really would not be a good idea, and that they would likely be treated very poorly as a result. My husband suggested there were so many other places they could look at, but his parents had their hearts set. My husband and I worried for his much younger siblings who are still in school, and I knew that most, if not all, of my past teachers would still be there, but I had hoped that they wouldn't be too open about me. They moved there in June, and by August, they had mentioned me to some people that had seen photos of me and my husband in their home. And when my siblings-in-law started school, it really wasn't great. They found it hard to make friends, and one of them was even denied a place on the football team as a result. Parents also don't want their kids associating with them, and they also notice neighbors are less friendly. They don't get the same chit-chat they liked when they first moved in, and they heard a lot of hate about my family, the kids especially. And now my husband's parents are mad at me, and they acted like I didn't warn them. So I reminded them that I did give them a friendly warning, and they couldn't say I didn't, so they shouldn't blame me. My husband had my back on that and told them the exact same thing. They then told me that I shouldn't be saying, "Oh, I told you so," when my husband's siblings are being negatively impacted. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You gave these people so much warning that they shouldn't move there, it's not even funny. Like, for starters, any town that acts like that towards a family and holds this weird like multi-generational like grudge of some kind, that's the clear sign that these people not only really suck, but they're also going to spend the rest of their lives in this stupid town pretty much forever. And that's not fair for you or your family in the slightest, especially the original poster, because it doesn't sound like they were a bad kid. They just had bad family members who made some awful decisions. And the fact that anybody would be like, wow, anyone associated with that family is also bad. Like, what kind of exclusionary tactic is that? Like, these are not good people, and I don't blame you for warning your in-laws. So for them to follow through and move there anyways, despite the fact that they are literally connected to you in a serious way, in my opinion, is so stupid. That is literally their own fault, and they did this to themselves. So if they really want to blame anybody, they should look back in the mirror and blame themselves, because you literally did everything you could to warn them of what was going to happen. An entitled customer freaks out and starts screaming at me after I messaged a random contact on their phone, informing them that they left their phone in my store and that they need to pick it up. Because right now, after the way I just got swore at, I seriously don't know if I'm the jerk, and right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work retail in a relatively small town, but it is actively growing and there are lots of businesses, and customers often come in with bags from other stores in the plaza. If you lose something, it is unlikely that you'll find it quickly, if at all. And this is why I was initially comfortable with what I did. A few weeks ago at work, someone left a very expensive iPhone by accident. After a few hours, she still did not come back for it, so I checked if it was locked, and thankfully it wasn't. So I went to messages, I tapped on the first contact I saw, and I left a message explaining where I worked, where the phone was, and I asked them to contact her household about the phone. Now, I did not look through the conversations or anything else on the phone, and after that, it went back into the safe room until she came to claim it. Now, I thought it was a reasonable thing to do, as I've seen that happen in media, even though I've never dealt with this in real life. But this lady actually came back in less than an hour later, cussing up a storm and calling me awful names to my face and to my manager. her. It turns out her expensive unlocked phone was her business phone, and I had messaged a client. My manager did her best to calm her down and get her to leave as soon as possible because I was clearly about to cry. And thankfully, my manager made it clear that I wasn't in trouble after she left, and then we just moved on. Well, all of this happened in front of a customer who was waiting, and when I came back to check her out, she said she heard everything, and she was appalled by the phone lady's reaction. This customer said that she would have been grateful in that situation, and generally reassured me that I shouldn't feel bad. When I went home, I told my mom about it, and she basically told me that I was dumb to do that, but agreed that the phone lady was overreacting when I had good intentions. And at this point, I have no idea how to feel about it anymore, but I probably won't be going out of my way like that ever again. What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk here. Like, first of all, you were trying to do a good thing for somebody who left their phone, because I know if I was in that situation, I would be so livid. Phones are already expensive enough, but to lose it like that would have been a nightmare, especially since this is a business phone that this lady has. Like, seriously, why would you not want to get that back in a timely fashion? It is nobody's fault except for her own that she left the phone at the store. And why should you have to try and save face for this lady? Like, it's not your fault that she left the phone at the store, that's hers. So for her to freak out like that is just completely unacceptable. So it's really weird to me that she would be like, wow, I can't believe you did that to me. Like, seriously, you were just trying to do a good thing and she freaked out on you for no reason. So no, you're not the jerk. I think you had really good intentions, and I know if I lost my phone, I would definitely want someone like yourself to find it and try to get it back to me. My entitled sister is demanding that my husband and I name our future daughter in the exact same way that she plans on doing it, by using some old vintage name that we're honestly not interested in. And after listening to her delusional ramblings about what we need to do for our child, my husband and I feel backed into a corner about our future daughter, and at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister and I are both expecting our first baby. My sister is super in love with vintage names, and for about a decade now, she has talked everybody's ear off about how much she wants to have babies with these names. I know her top 3 names for boys and girls are names like Edith and Martha and Audrey, as well as Alan, Harold, and Stanley for the boys. I'm not sure which of these names my future niece or nephew will get, but I know they are still my sister's top choices. Now, my husband and I are not going for vintage names or any classic names. We chose the name Lyric, which is a pretty modern and not super common name. Now, my sister doesn't know the name yet, but she is aware of some names that we chose not to use. And honestly, she was upset that we didn't have a vintage name on there. She made all these suggestions, and I told her thanks, but we had a different type of name that we wanted. She then asked me why we didn't want to have the cousins match styles with their names, and she said how cute it would be to have 2 little cousins with matching old people names. She had this idea of doing this photo shoot when the babies are born, where we dress them like grannies and grandpas, and she said the old names would make everything so much more perfect. And eventually, I just stopped talking about it when she did not take no for an answer. I got lists of vintage names, sent articles on how vintage names are in style right now, and I just ignored all of it. She even sent me Instagram and TikTok accounts where it shows these babies with these vintage names, and she's like, oh, look at how cute that is. Doesn't this name sound so sweet for this little baby? Doesn't the vintage name add to the cuteness? And honestly, at this point, I didn't engage or buy any of it. And now my sister is crying and saying that I'm ruining this, and she commented like she can't use a vintage name for her baby because we're not doing that. So I told her straight up, just because I'm not giving my daughter a vintage name doesn't mean that she can't use a vintage name on her baby. I pointed out that they are 2 separate people with 2 different parents and we don't need to match. But she cried that it won't be the same. And why can't I see how dismissive my comment is? So seriously, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I really don't know what to do. No, of course you're not the jerk in this story. Like, seriously, your sister is out of her mind. Like, here's a news flash for your sister. You do not have to name your baby in the same style as her stupid baby. Like, this is seriously so weird, it's not even funny. You mean to tell me that she's really getting bent out of shape because you guys don't want to have the same stupid name style as her baby? Like, she's really making this that big of a deal that she wants to dictate your daughter's future identity and like entire life based off of some stupid photo shoot she wants to do after they're born? Like, what is going on right now? That is not normal. You can't just make demands like that and act super entitled about someone else's child. That doesn't make any sense. And I think the best part about this is that she's actually like legitimately getting upset over this. She's crying and freaking out that you're not following along with her stupid trend, and that really is the definition of crazy in my opinion, because she has absolutely no say in your child's future name, and the fact that she does think that, in my opinion, is completely out of hand.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My uncle is an absolute menace in my extended family, as he has on multiple occasions ruined so many gatherings that it's now caused a divide in the rest of my family. Here's what happened. A few Thanksgivings ago, my uncle on my mom's side ruined the celebration in a huge way. We had extended family over, and a few of the adults were playing card games. My mother was winning, and my drunk uncle decided that she was cheating somehow. He accused her, she laughed it off, and he literally flipped the table they were playing on. It broke a bunch of glasses, and my mom was shoved into the corner with the table on top of her. And by the way, my uncle is around 6'4" and probably 230 pounds. My older brother, who is 5'3" and maybe 140 pounds, charges my uncle as soon as he understood what happened. More relatives jump in, but my uncle is the biggest by far. He's very much punching down at everyone trying to stop him. Now, I for the most part start gathering all my younger siblings and cousins and nieces, and I barricade myself into a room with them. The kids are screaming and crying, but I just have them huddled together to try and comfort each other. I hush them a bit and I listen at the door for anything. The next part I didn't see with my own eyes, but apparently my brother was beat down by my uncle. My cousins and father tried to chase my uncle out of the house, and they tussled down the hallway and eventually crashed into the door I had barricaded myself and the kids behind, but didn't break it down. Once they got my uncle outside, they locked the screen door to keep him out, because I guess they were trying to talk him down or something like that. The screen door we have is a metal mesh with metal framing as support, but my uncle was not going to let that stop him. He slammed on the door until the screen broke off of the metal bars in one corner, and this is supposedly when my dad brought out a weapon and chased him off the property. My mom's sister went out to drive around and find her husband, leaving 3 of her children stranded at our house, marking quite literally the end of the party. When the dust settled, my mother had some minor scrapes and aches from being pushed over, our door was broken, and my brother's eye was swollen shut, with my father looking incredibly pissed off. And this unfortunately leads into another sequence of events a few weeks later. The oldest daughter of the offending uncle was having her first child and had planned a baby shower at her parents' home. All of my cousins have a really close bond with my mom, as she's always opened our home to them whenever they needed a place to stay, or even just to have a place that they can vent. So my cousin really wanted my mom to be at her baby shower, but the only problem was that my uncle had never apologized. My mom's sister even told my mom that no apology was necessary, and that she needed to get over it. She even implied that her husband's reaction was justified, and that maybe my mom shouldn't have cheated, which, to be clear, my mom did not cheat. She just doesn't drink or use any substances, so it's easy for her to beat a few drunks at blackjack. Anyways, my mom refused to go. My cousin pleaded with her and was looking for any kind of compromise. And so my mom gave her 3 options. Either the uncle is not present at the shower, the uncle apologizes, or she will just not be showing up. And this very much upset my cousin, to the point where she began talking garbage to the rest of the family. My younger siblings, who mostly hadn't been informed of the extent of the drama, since I had managed to shield them enough from the actual event, were excited to go to the baby shower. After talking it over with my mom, she decided that I should go and take my younger siblings with us. My older brother quite obviously didn't want to be involved, but my mother thought the drama would cease if she would let us show our faces there, and that this would hopefully smooth things over. And in a way, she was right. The baby shower was largely uneventful, and my uncle basically stayed in his room the entire night. We didn't greet him when he made a brief appearance, and then we just eventually left the party. That side of the family wasn't invited to any of the family gatherings we hosted for the next couple of months, besides maybe a few of my cousins who were more well-behaved. But then eventually my mom's sister came around again, and then eventually my uncle along with her. And as you can probably guess, they never apologized. They just showed up less and never stayed at a party for a long time. And to top it all off, our screen door never got fixed, so I'm honestly hoping I don't have to deal with my uncle in that way ever again. Yeah, that guy sounds like a very dangerous drunk person, and I don't blame you and your family for being hesitant to be around him in the first place. Like, this guy literally thought your mom was cheating, so he was like, okay, I'm gonna flip a table and get everybody injured. Like, that truly is insane, and I really hope things get better between you and your extended family. My mom and I are constantly having fights about money, and it's now reaching a breaking point as she is actively talking garbage about me behind my back to my siblings. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So ever since my dad passed away 3 years ago, money has become a major issue in the household. I still live at home at 28, mainly because I can't afford to move out, and also because I wanted to be there for my mom during these tough times. I earn about $27,000 and have credit card debt I'm trying to pay off. I also give my mom about $450 a month, which is more than I can afford. On top of that, I buy groceries for my sister and I, which comes up to about $200 a month because my mom refuses to help out with any groceries. I give my little sister and brother money whenever my mom can't afford to do so, and I take my sister out shopping or to the cinema once a month. I split the cooking with my mom, and I help with cleaning the house, and even give my mom mom additional money to send to my grandma. However, my mom often complains and tells me that I'm not doing enough. My mom works part-time and is claiming benefits, and I can't have a single conversation with her without her raising her financial worries. She has become extremely self-centered over the years, and the conversation must always revolve around her. She never asks about me and just doesn't care what I have to say. She also always tells my sister and I how she always feels so low. At first, we would be very sympathetic, but when we're hearing the same thing every day for 3 years, and she takes her stress and anger out on us, it starts to become unbearable. I've been dealing with anxiety for years, and I'm at a really low point in my life, and I feel like I've failed in all aspects. However, I always appear happy and bubbly in front of everybody. Yesterday, I came home from a work trip to see my mother sitting there with my brother, looking really gloomy, and she barely greeted me. Later, my brother proceeds to tell me that my mother spent the past hour complaining about me, saying that the money I give her isn't enough. She said the next time I spend her money, she is just going to send it right back to me as it's useless, and she doesn't want it as it doesn't cover the remainder of the rent. She said she's not happy about how I'm not paying the bills, and that I should also be helping pay for the broadband, even though I'm giving her $450 a month. She also complained that the housing benefits she receives are low because I'm still living at home. Now, my siblings were extremely shocked at her behavior and defended me in my absence. And when I heard all of this, I was just completely broken. I just burst out in tears in front of my siblings. I felt so worthless in all aspects of my life, and I just couldn't cope anymore. I went on a walk at night to which my mother followed me, and I haven't spoken to her since, and she is also giving me the silent treatment as if I've done something wrong. Not to mention, a few weeks ago, we got into an argument because she demanded that I buy a brand new $300 bed because my brother is moving back home with us after graduating. Before this, my mom and I had an extremely strong relationship. I considered her my best friend. However, she's changed over the years and has become so nasty. I'm so upset and I'm hurt that I barely want to eat. Am I in the wrong for giving my mom the silent treatment? Sometimes I feel insensitive considering that she's also lost her husband, but I've also lost my dad, who I was extremely close to. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think your mom is ever going to change in regards to like how she treats you, but I think you absolutely can change your situation if you really wanted to. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be planning to move out. I understand that it's hard to afford that, but if you find enough roommates and enough people to jump in, you really can get your own place and have somewhere you can live besides this. And this especially sucks because you wanted to be there for your mom during these tough times that she's going through. Like clearly your dad passing away has affected everybody negatively. So for your mom to be like, wow, you're not doing enough. You need to pay me more. You're not doing anything in this house. Or to even begin to have that kind of conversation, in my opinion, is so inappropriate. Because from the sounds of it, you're the one doing everything around the house. So hopefully your situation can change sooner than later, because the way your mom's acting, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for taking part of my daughter's settlement money to pay for her tuition after she failed her senior year? Because right now she's claiming that I'm stealing from her, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 49-year-old female, and my daughter won a decent amount of money from a personal injury settlement a few years ago. Now, since she is a minor, the money has been in an account that I plan to keep until she turned 18 years old. My plan was to always give it to her once she's an adult, so she can use it however she wants, whether that's for college, a car, or if she just wants to save it up for the future. As long as she's using it responsibly, then I'm okay with it. Well, here's the issue that comes in. She failed her senior year of high school. 2024 has been a rough year for her, but she didn't put in the bare minimum effort, and she knows that. She has now begun to repeat the year, and the tuition for her school isn't cheap, and we've already paid for all of her years until now. Well, I decided that since she failed and has to repeat the year and decided to lie about it, I'm going to take this extra year's worth of tuition out of her settlement money. Well, when I did that, she flipped out, saying the money is hers and that I'm stealing it when both me and her dad have agreed on keeping that specific amount. She told her oldest brother that he should enjoy university because her money's paying for it, and this just goes to show that she has no concept of money, because if she knew how much university tuition cost, she wouldn't be saying this. Not to mention her brother was and has always been a better student. To make matters more complicated, she has always had bad spending habits, so I can't and won't give her that money until she's an adult, and she also considers that as stealing. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I absolutely think the original poster's the jerk here, but not for the obvious reasons of literally taking her money without asking. Like, how on earth did you miss the fact that your daughter is failing her senior year? Like, schools send progress reports all the time. They're always updating the parents on stuff going on, and I'm pretty sure if your daughter was on the verge of failing, especially her senior year, then you would probably know about it sooner than later. So sure, she's not doing what she needs to do, but you definitely never stepped up to the plate to help her either. So on that end, I think you're an awful parent, and the favoritism towards your son could not be more obvious. Like halfway through the post, you start trashing your daughter all because money was involved. And it's like, oh, okay, now you want to be a parent. But where were you when she was literally failing all of her classes for months on end? But when it comes to the money itself, yes, I absolutely think you're stealing from your daughter to pay for something that you could have prevented. If you weren't so neglectful, you could have caught the fact that your daughter was not doing what she needs to do at school. And sure, there absolutely is blame that needs to be placed on the daughter, but for you to sit there and be like, oh my god, I can't believe you failed, and then act like she doesn't know what she's doing with money, when clearly you don't know what you're doing as a parent, in my opinion, is so ironic. So yes, you are the jerk for using that money on your daughter's tuition, because this all could have absolutely been avoided. My parents treated me like garbage throughout my entire childhood, and even treat me badly as an adult, that I'm now questioning everything I ever had to do with my parents. Here's what happened. So my brother and I are in our 30s, and my parents are in their 60s. A lot of people have told me that barring some serious cases that might be going on in the home, you always owe your parents a relationship, and that I should just talk to them about it. So I asked my parents what kind of relationship they want to have with me, but they scoffed at my question. And when I asked them again a few months later, they just rolled their eyes at me. I've asked my parents many times to stop scoffing at me and rolling their eyes at me, and always dismissing me, but I always end up causing a fight. When I try to talk to my parents, they usually react with haughty dismissal, ridicule, or interruption. It's uncommon for me to be able to speak a full sentence that they actually listen to and understand. As a small child, I caused a lot of fights with my parents by talking to them unnecessarily. By the age of 10 years old, I learned to minimize unnecessary communication. And these days, my relationship with my parents consists of them talking at me while I sit there passively. Before going to therapy, I thought that most parent-child relationships were like ours, but my therapist said that most parents take an interest in their children's lives, and I was pretty shocked because my parents rarely ask me anything about my life or myself, and if they do, they interrupt me almost as soon as I start answering. My therapist also said that most parents are nice to their children. Well, my parents said they were nasty to me because they love me. Growing up, my friends would sometimes ask me, why are your parents so mean? And I would say, well, it's because they love me, implying that my friends' kind parents didn't love them. I was completely brainwashed by my parents. But all of this explains why I never felt bonded to my parents growing up. As awful as it sounds, I didn't love them. I learned pretty early on that I had to simulate love with on-demand hugs, as well as on-demand smiles and obedience and silence, while also just going along with ideological compliance. So I just faked it until I made it, but I never made it to the point of developing actual love for my parents, and I don't plan on doing that moving forward. Yeah, I can completely understand where you're coming from because that sounds awful. Like, I can't imagine having a household like that where your parents literally just did not care about you in the slightest. They treated you like garbage and just literally did not do anything to make you feel comfortable in your own home. So personally, when it comes to that statement from the beginning, where people try to tell you, oh, you should always try to have a relationship with your parents. Like, if my parents acted like that, there's no way I would ever want anything to do with them. And why would I? Like, what you described sounds awful. They basically excused away all of their bad behavior, and that was not fair for you in the slightest. So moving forward, I really don't blame you, because what you described absolutely sounds awful. My grandma keeps coming over and gardening in my yard, including making changes to my late husband's memorial spot. And right now, I am so frustrated, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm so frustrated, and I don't know if saying anything to her was the right move. To preface all of this, I have a lot of privilege, specifically due to my grandparents who are fairly wealthy. They have bailed me out financially many times, they've helped with groceries, and most notably, they gave me a place to live very cheaply. They owned my childhood home, and when the old tenant moved out, they offered it to me. At first, they said they were giving it to me in full, with a $1 sale to make it official. My husband and I did not renew our lease for this, so we could move. Well, once it was too late to renew, and our lives were packed up, then she suddenly said it would be a couple of years, and that I would rent until then. Now, this is not what we agreed on, but the rent was severely discounted, so okay, fine, I guess. So we moved in because we literally didn't have much of a choice. Well, my husband ended up dying right afterwards, and I started gardening. My grandma also loves to garden, and she told me I could do whatever I want with a yard. So I was planning things out and picking out plants. Well, the first thing she brings over are lots of plants, despite me saying, please let me pick out my own. She was not checking if they were cat friendly, as I do have strays, and she was bringing me things I wasn't even ready to plant. So she took it upon herself to start planting them in places I didn't want. Then, despite me trying to buy black mulch myself, she took it upon herself to be helpful and buy a bunch of brown mulch instead. Which, okay, fine, that's not a big deal, I guess. But it wasn't even my project anymore, it was hers. Well, then she was talking about how nice it would look wrapped around the house. And I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do with it, so I told her so. And that was the same thing with putting the rose bush that she bought under my bedroom window. I didn't even want that there. I came home 2 days ago, and the whole area had been mulched with the rose bush planted exactly how she wanted it. Well, yesterday, I came home to that mulch filled with plants that I didn't want, several of which are toxic to cats. And worst of all, my late husband's memorial spot had been supposedly fixed. It was a rose bush with black mulch around it that had his ashes sprinkled over it. It was meant to stay black. I didn't care if it blended with the rest. I had my own ideas for which plants to put next to it. And now all that black mulch is covered, so it blends with the rest, with plants being added around it, and one of which is a flower that I know he would have hated. I've been so polite about asking her to stop, but this is just too much. So I got mad, and she seems so confused about all of this. So I'm honestly so frustrated right now, and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, this is a really crappy situation for several reasons. But the biggest one, in my opinion, is the fact that your grandma tricked you guys. She literally said, oh yeah, you can buy our house for $1, and then she waits until you guys are all packed up and ready to move in, only for her then to like pull the rug out from underneath you and be like, psych, just kidding, you're gonna rent. And it's like, well, at this point, I've got no choice but to move in. So that's like a big immediate red flag in my opinion, and you guys did not deserve that. But when it comes to the whole gardening situation, as well as her messing with your husband's memorial, like that all sounds incredibly intrusive, and it's just completely inconsiderate to you and your feelings. Not to mention your cats and these toxic plants that are all around the house. Like, is she trying to do this on purpose, or is this just willful ignorance? But either way, it sounds like your grandma's being very selfish towards you, and it really seems like everything in your life recently has revolved around what your grandma wants instead of what you want. And that would personally drive me insane. So if I was dealing with this, I would have said something as well. Like, she's being very rude and absolutely inconsiderate towards you, and that is not fair in the slightest. Because setting boundaries like this is never a bad idea, especially if you have someone as intrusive as your grandma. My friend is quite literally ruining my job by going out of her way to be obnoxious and make me look bad. And even though she's only worked here for about 4 days, I'm now seriously at such an impasse that I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm pretty sure it's controversial to refer your friend to your job. My friend asked me if my job was hiring, and I said they are, and I gave her a glowing recommendation. But ever since my friend started, it has been very unpleasant to work with her. We both work at a school, so luckily we're in different classrooms. Last year, I worked in the classroom my friend now works in, and the teacher in that room was absolutely horrible to me, and all she did was yell at me and talk down to me. It was such a miserable experience, and I told my friend how difficult that woman made my job. I would even come to my friends crying over the way I was treated. But my friend, on the other hand, she loves this woman, and she constantly tells me how much she loves her. She would even go as far as to tell me that she's special. Now, it hurts me a lot because as her friend, she's disregarding what happened to me. I feel like the more she says how much she loves her, the more she's pushing me away. There's another teacher in that room who I got along with really well, but according to my friend, she finds her to be an absolute jerk, and she's constantly saying rude things to me about her. Now, for a side note, I'm in a new class, but the teachers in that room are more quiet and introverted, which isn't bad. I mean, it makes my job easier, and it's much better than being yelled at by the other from the last year. So as a result, they just come across as awkward and unfriendly. Well, today at the end of work, I saw my friend standing in the hallway. I asked her what happened, and she said that they were doing some renovations in her room, so I invited her into my classroom. It was the last few minutes of walk, so there weren't any kids at work, and we had nothing important to do. So my friend came into my classroom, and I introduced her. My coworkers didn't say anything, which I will agree is rude. They didn't even say hello or even acknowledge her. They aren't mean people, but it doesn't come across well. My friend and I were just sitting down, catching up with each other, and then out of nowhere, my friend loudly said, "I just can't be in this room," and then she stormed off. And I just sat there so embarrassed, and I know a few of my coworkers in my room noticed what happened, so I then wished everybody a good rest of the day, and then I headed out. When I saw my friend, I said, "What the heck was that?" She then told me how my coworkers in that classroom are mean people with negative vibes, but I told her, yes, they are quiet, but then she suddenly cut me off from talking. She continued by saying that she can tell they aren't good people, but I told her, okay, but I've been here for 3 years and I can tell you that they are not mean people. The whole car ride home, she continued insulting her job and praising that one truly rude person. And it hurts so much because I got her a job at my job, and she is literally insulting everything. My friend's whole thing is that she doesn't want to get involved in workplace drama and that she just wants to get her paycheck and then leave. But she is already 4 days in and she's creating a lot of chaos. I really don't know what to do, and I'm so scared that it will impact my reputation at work. What should I do? Okay, first off, your friend is an absolute jerk. They're literally going out of their way to ruin your job. And I've got to be honest, it really seems like
they're trying to sabotage your life as well. Like, I think anybody with some sense of like morality or even like, I don't know, half a brain would probably recognize that that first teacher you dealt with was absolutely insane. She was rude, hateful, and honestly and unsurprisingly, nobody liked her. So it really seems like your friend is going out of her way to make it seem like, oh yeah, she's not that bad, she's amazing. And I think I can confidently say that she's doing that to try and undermine your experience. She's trying to spin this into a positive in a way that's not fair for you in the slightest. And she's now doing it with literally other people that you work with, like your coworkers right now in that classroom that you had her sit down in. She went out of her way to scream at the top of her lungs, oh my god, I can't stay in here. I've got to get out of this classroom. Only to then storm off as if she's a teenager. Like, what on earth was that about? That is so unprofessional. Like, that along with all the other things you're mentioning really seems like she's trying to ruin your life and ruin your job experience. Like, was she ever your friend to begin with? It seems like she probably like manipulated her way into getting a job, and now that she's here, she's literally ruining your workplace experience. And also, why on earth are you riding with her to work? I would cut that cord immediately. That can only add to the misery of having to show up every day to that, on top of the fact that I'm pretty sure she's probably talking garbage about you behind your back. Because I've learned in life, if they're willing to do that with other people, then they absolutely would do that with you. So in my opinion, and I can only speak for what I would do if I was in that situation, I would really consider the water poisoned and start looking for another job. Like, that's just me. I really think I would just start looking for somewhere else to work, because based on what you've described, it seems like this is not only incredibly surprising, but it also seems like your friend is only getting started. Who knows the kind of chaos they're gonna cause at your expense? Like, that sounds awful, and I would just not want to deal with that. So with whatever you choose to do in this situation, I really hope it all works out, because the way this lady's acting towards you is completely unfair, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled boss refuses to hire anybody extra just so we can try and do our job at a better pace, because now after 4 years, my team is overworked and burned out, resulting in just about everybody quitting their job and finding something else. Here's what happened. So I've been working in IT for the last 10 years, and 4 of those are in the company that I'm just leaving. I joined this company after a few bad experiences with coworkers and bosses, and after getting to know some of the staff in the company, I was really happy about the coworkers and colleagues because most of them seemed to be really friendly. Now, into my second year at the company, I felt like we were understaffed in IT, but I thought to myself, okay, but it's not so bad, right? Well, that is until our workload increased, and this is all before we could handle the daily stuff and projects, and on top, could even do some system upgrades over the year. And now we were getting more and more work due to new regulations from corporate and more software that needed to be supported. During this time, I started asking my team leader to look for a new guy, as we really needed more hands. After a year of bringing this up at least once per month, my boss started with his usual speeches. He would say, you just need to prioritize your work. And of course, this would not help if the work itself is at like 110% of the workload that the current team could even handle. We increased our hours and could get it done, but that was only for half a year. At this point, I was done with this whole ordeal. Corporate IT got more and more hostile, and on top, I saw people leave left and right. After around 3 years of being with the company, I saw our trainee leave. I talked to him about pay and why he wanted to leave, and not to try and dissuade him, but to understand his reasoning and show my support. And at that moment, I've been passively looking for a job for about 6 months. I was also at this time talking to my team leader and telling him that he needs to increase my salary by around 8% at least and bring more hands onto the team. He was asking me why I wanted to leave, so I told him about all the problems that he knows about and said that I can't bring myself to stay in this company with all these problems that the team is facing. I then repeated back the same thing he tried to give a speech about so many times. I said to him, I just need to prioritize myself. And while he didn't react, unfortunately, I do think that I got the point across. Later, I heard from my boss, basically the one above my team leader and me, that my team leader has never asked for more people. And to be honest, I want to trust this guy because he was sincere all the time as far as I know. But regardless, I handed in my resignation and I start my new job next month. And hopefully this new job will be better than my old one. Oh man, I cannot stand when managers do this. You tell them, hey, we're completely at capacity and we need more staff. Or you explain that your workload is impossible and the team can't keep up. And instead of hiring somebody to help out, they just say, oh, just work on yourself, you can do it. They give these empty, encouraging statements that literally do nothing. And then, just like in the story, people start leaving. They start dropping like flies. And to that end, I don't blame the original poster for being like, listen, I need a pay increase. You're giving me more work than I signed on for, and this is not fair.
year. And I bet this guy didn't bring anybody on board because it probably would have affected his paycheck and his bonus at the end of the year. Like, that's typically what's happened in the past at previous jobs I've worked at, and it is always so obnoxious to see. They would rather make sure they have a good paycheck instead of making sure the team, I don't know, doesn't quit their job. So truly, I hope your new job is way better than what you've been dealing with, because what you described sounds absolutely miserable. My parents are overly critical of my boyfriend, and they are constantly putting him down and trying to call him entitled. And after hearing their concerns and trying to understand where they're coming from, I feel like I'm at such an impasse that at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents and I just had a big conversation about my boyfriend and what they really think about him. For context, we've been dating for 1 year, and we met at the same college, and I'm 1 year older than him, and I just graduated while he's in his senior year of college. They have made snarky remarks in the past, which I have ignored, but this conversation was the biggest one we've ever had yet. Now, this all started with me saying that I'm going to visit him at college for the weekend, because I haven't seen him in weeks due to our busy schedules. I mentioned that I will sleep over for a couple of days, to which my mom made like a weird confused face, and then she just laughed. I was like, wait, what's so funny? To which she responded, it's ridiculous that you're going back to the college that you graduated from just to visit your boyfriend and sleep in a dorm again for a few days. And I thought to myself, I'm sorry, but is that really that strange or something? Like, don't couples visit their partner in college during the weekends and have like a sleepover? So what if I'm graduated? Like, what is odd about that? Well, this then basically got into a conversation where she started naming every aspect that she doesn't like about him. First of all, she hates the age gap, because my mom said that because he's only 1 year younger than me, she claims that he is so much younger than you. But it's like, wait, it's only 1 year. And so according to her, he's not a man in her eyes and doesn't have the ability to take care of me, even though I feel that he absolutely takes care of me and he is a gentleman. Now, when he came over to my house, and he's only been to my place maybe twice, by the way, after we were all done eating dinner, if there was anything left over, he would ask if anyone was gonna eat it, and we would all say no, so he would just finish what's left. And apparently, in my mom's eyes, he was eating too much, while also being inconsiderate, even though this is literally a compliment to my mom's cooking. My parents also criticized that he wouldn't talk a whole lot, but he is just the shy type and has only met my family twice 6 months apart, so I understand. My dad then criticized that he didn't ask the right type of questions. For example, when we went to visit my grandparents, my boyfriend asked my grandparents how they met and how they like living in the country that they do. But apparently, my dad said those were stupid questions and instead should have asked something like, oh, how did you make this dinner? And it's like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Now, another time I got sunburnt at the beach because my boyfriend went swimming and I was sat under the shade, but then decided to tan and put sunscreen on my own back. And I low-key just fell asleep and I got burnt. And apparently my dad blamed it on him, even though my boyfriend wasn't near me for like 30 minutes. I then went to the beach again and I stayed an hour later than I should have because I wasn't going to see him for 4 weeks and I just wanted to spend 1 extra hour with him. But then my mom texted me saying me coming home later than expected was his fault, even though we both came in our own cars, meaning that I have full control over when I leave, and also I'm a fully grown adult. And my parents even get upset over like really petty things. For example, when he came over to my house the second time, he was sitting on a wide couch where you can extend your legs. However, his toes were touching the side of the table and not on top of the table at all, and my mom said that because of that, he has absolutely no manners at all, and has generalized him as that kind of person, calling him ill-mannered and entitled, and now that's how she views him. When we visited my grandparents, he was carrying flowers to give to my grandma as a thank you for having us, and I guess in that moment he forgot to come back to the car and help my dad and uncle with the suitcases, and so my dad called him entitled for that, saying that he doesn't feel like he has to help, when honestly it was a genuine mistake, because in that moment, he was focused on surprising my grandmother with flowers, and he just forgot, because when we were in a different country beforehand, he carried everything in, leaving me with just a backpack and a travel suitcase, and he would carry the heavy suitcases constantly, and the list honestly goes on and on. But this conversation left me feeling so empty and upset because I genuinely love him, and I feel like he treats me well and is a man to me. I understand there's certain things that may seem like a gray area, but is there really a need to generalize him as an ill-mannered person and as entitled? I'm honestly so stressed out and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your parents are being kind of ridiculous because what they're describing is not that bad. Like for starters, it seems like nothing he ever does is ever good enough. They overlook all of his good qualities, and it really seems like they're making mountains out of molehills. Like they're seriously cherry picking these moments of being like, oh wow, he is so entitled for not doing this or that. But it's like, really? Are we gonna generalize that much? Like that seems incredibly extreme and just so stupid.
Like, to me, there's nothing in this post that makes this guy seem like a bad guy in the slightest. But instead, this just shows that your parents are kind of insane. They have no idea what they're talking about, and it seems like they're just being super weird for like no reason. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would tell my parents to get lost. They're being super critical about your boyfriend for no reason, and it seems like they're just trying to invent new ways to dislike him. My husband's gaming is ruining our marriage, as I now have found out he's been messaging a woman behind my back for several months, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 17 years, and we've been together for 20. For most of that time, our relationship was everything that one could hope for. We've always enjoyed spending time together, especially since he works for me, so being around each other constantly was something we both loved. About 3 or 4 years ago, he started playing a game on his phone. I saw him playing it often, but assumed it was just a harmless game. Over time, he became obsessed with his phone, staying up late and falling asleep on the couch in our basement, and at this point, I now consider the basement living room his bedroom because he rarely sleeps in ours anymore. Well, this past year has been the worst of our marriage. He has become angry, short-tempered, and often raises his voice at me. He stays up all night and then sleeps through most of the next day, sometimes even wearing the same clothing for days at a time. He's distant and disconnected from what used to be a shared life. It always feels like he's somewhere else. Also, his work has suffered and I've had to cover for him. My friends and family have noticed too, and I've made excuses for him. I thought we were going through a rough patch, and if I just waited things out, everything would eventually improve. Last week, a text came through on his phone while he was asleep on the couch, and when I saw the notification, I picked up his phone and I read the message along with many others. And it was then that I saw a long chain of communication between my husband and a woman that I've never heard of, with text messages going back and forth at all hours of the night. When I saw this, I woke him up immediately, and he told me that it was just someone from the game. He was then angry that I was upset, and then he went to the basement, slamming the door in the process. The next morning, he was calmer and tried to convince me I was overreacting. The next day, I checked his call and text logs online, and I do that because the phones are paid for by the company that I own, so I definitely have access. Well, I found there were 2-hour-long texting sessions with hundreds of messages, and these were happening regularly. While there weren't many calls, a few that existed lasted up to 70 minutes, often in the middle of the night. When I confronted him again, he claimed he didn't remember the calls, even though one had been just 2 weeks earlier. He said it was related to the game where players sometimes wake each other up to get online. I then started reading on Reddit about Discord, and I discovered that he had an account there, which he had joined a year ago, which is around the time when our problem started. So I logged in, and I saw numerous exchanges between him and this woman. While they weren't explicitly inappropriate, the messages were flirty and suggestive. She had even sent him recordings of herself singing vulgar songs. After reading her general conversations with others, it became clear that this was her usual behavior: flirtatious, vulgar, and attention-seeking. It's been a week of confronting him with evidence, and each time he admits the bare minimum and denies the rest until I find more proof. He always has excuses, even for text messages and calls that no longer appear on his phone but are still clearly listed in the usage logs. I also asked if he spent money on the game, and initially he said hundreds, but when I checked his bank account, which by the way, we added each other to our accounts when we got married, I discovered that over the past 30 months, he had spent $6,500 on the game. He kept all of this from me for so long, and when I found out, he repeatedly lied. He's been gaslighting me throughout this entire ordeal. He has since deleted the game from his phone, and I also confirmed that it's not on his work PC either. He also deleted and blocked the woman's number at my request, and he keeps telling me how he loves me and that he's sorry for hurting me. He claims he got caught up in the game and the culture surrounding it, with no intention beyond just fitting in. While I believe he's genuinely sorry now, I'm struggling to trust him moving forward. If I hadn't found out, who knows how far this would have gone. At this point, I'm less worried about this woman and more concerned about his self-control and his ability to live a responsible adult life. I'm feeling an overwhelming mix of emotions. I'm feeling depression, sadness, anxiety, as well as fear, loneliness, and grief, with anger being the least of them all. I don't want a divorce unless it's the last option available. I don't want to throw away 20 years of my life unless there's no other choice. But right now, I feel like I don't have any good options. What should I do? Yeah, this is a serious situation, because your husband was literally like inches away from cheating on you. And yes, I think this was all leading in that direction, and the fact that you intervened kind of like stopped the process, at least for now. Like, why else would he be so distant and like hiding in the basement to sleep there instead of staying in the same bed with you? Like, I don't know, that just seems really weird, and I can't imagine going through that in the way that you are currently going through right now. So truly, I hope this all gets better better? Because this absolutely falls on your husband and nobody else. An entitled jerk tries to walk out of a veterinarian clinic by claiming that he didn't know he had to pay for any of the services rendered. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's entitled behavior. Here's what happened. So I work in a vet clinic in a rich neighborhood that is honestly insufferable. Most people are perfectly normal and pleasant, and dealing with very sick or dying pets means that emotions sometimes run high. So it's not uncommon for people to get somewhat rude or just a little bit awful, which usually is completely fine. But once every month or so, I have to put up with an S-tier fat old jerk. Not someone grieving or under high stress, but just a pathetic old bully. Today, we had a client send her dad to get an injection for her cat, and this barely takes maybe 5 minutes. When they handed the old guy the cat carrier afterwards, he just turned around and bolted and didn't even pay for a single service we rendered. The clinic manager is sitting next to me at the front desk at the same time, and she sees this and then goes out to flag him down before he gets into his car. I don't know what she said, but it must have hit a nerve of some kind, or he just really sucked as a human being. This old jerk then comes back in and is huffing and puffing. He says to us, "Well, nobody told me that I had to do that. I didn't know about that. Where do you people get off talking like that?" He continued to complain and moan, talking over me the whole time as I got him checked out. I didn't engage with his whining, but instead I just told him the total and I showed him where he could tap his card. Now, choosing not to react to this old jerk set him off even more, as he then demanded to know my name. But I just said no and handed him his receipt, which he crumpled up like a toddler. I then blankly stared at him and I kept repeating, "Have a good day," and I said this over and over again until he finally said, "You know what? The attitude here is terrible. I won't be coming back here." And he said one or two more things, but they were completely unintelligible. Regardless, he was still beet red in the face as he stomped off. And you know what? I seriously revile these people. It's hard not to let it become a generalized hatred towards anyone who looks over 55, but I know that for men like him, there's no greater punishment than being themselves. Okay, if there's ever a place on planet Earth where you know you're gonna have to pay probably a lot of money by the end of the day, it is definitely at the vet clinic. So for this old guy who has definitely been to the veterinarian once before in his life, to sit there and act like, "Oh, I didn't know I had to pay," like that is completely false and not correct in the slightest. But you know what? The way the original poster acted is something I've noticed in the wild as well. People like this are looking for some kind of argument. They want to have a fight, they want to sit there and get nasty and angry with you, so when you deny them that chance and give no reaction, this makes them go absolutely crazy. And that, in my opinion, is the best revenge you could have possibly dished out. So good for you for the way you handled this, because that old entitled jerk absolutely had it coming. An entitled racist Karen at IHOP goes in on me and my family by screaming at us that we need to go back to China and that apparently real Americans don't need us here. Things got so bad after this Karen tried to get physical that I ended up calling the police. Here's what happened. So last night, I was eating at IHOP with my mom and older sister. For reference, I'm 19 years old, my older sister is 22, and my mom is 50 years old. Now, lucky us, we were seated in a booth next to a Karen who's maybe in her mid-40s and her maybe 4-year-old son, with some other people who were dining with them, but trust me, they are not important to the story. We got there at the tail end of their meal, but they were just sitting and chatting as their waiter brought over their receipt. Now, the entire time, the kid was peeking over the booth periodically and reaching out to grab my sister's or my hair while his hands were covered in sticky maple syrup, or he would be bouncing so hard on the cushion that it shook our side of the bench. Now, we didn't say anything, as it's generally not worth it to cause a scene to people who we thought were already leaving. Well, we got our food and we were taking pictures as it was the Willy Wonka theme, and for the record, we're prone to take pictures of unique experiences. I got this sparkly hot chocolate, and my mom and sister got this bucket of mimosas and some large alcoholic beverage to share. Eventually, the family began to leave, and we all kind of sighed in relief. The kid, however, stayed around as the Karen was the last to leave. He peeked over our table and looked at our food and tried to touch it, which we quickly moved our food away from him. Well, he stopped trying to touch it and instead began to cough directly at us and onto our food. I mean, I could feel the spit of the kid's saliva on my hand. Now, my mom had enough at that point and looked at the Karen and asked her to mind her kid. And it's right at this moment that things really started to pop off. The Karen looked at my mom and said, "He is not sick. He just has asthma." And it's like, okay, as if coughing on our food would be okay if he wasn't sick. But my mom said it again. "He is coughing on us. Please move him." The Karen then said, "He is not sick. It's not that big of a deal." So my mom asked her, "Okay, so you're okay if I spit in your food?" And it was then that this Karen lost her mind. She screamed out, "How dare you?" And then this Karen actually throws a cup that she stole from another dinner's table that was full of hot coffee at my mom. Now, luckily it splashed onto the ground and it didn't really hurt anything, but my mom was livid at that point, and I had 911 dialed up and ready to go. My sister and I were periodically interjecting with curse words and defending our family, but my mom at this point was already done with it. The Karen stalked off with her kid, shouting for us to go back to China, while also saying that real Americans don't need you here. This entitled Karen then screamed at a server that we assume she knew personally that this apparently is why COVID was so bad, because people like us were bringing diseases. Well, as she was stalking off, my mom got up and threw a fork at her back and started screaming right back at her. Now, I had 911 on call listening in and had the police come and gave them the address to the IHOP. I was also taking a picture of the Karen and everything that I thought that we might needed. All the while, the Karen was screaming that she had a child with her and also demanding to know why my mom would be so violent and throwing more slurs and racist accusations at us. And it's so convenient that she literally threw the first punch by throwing a cup of coffee at us. The entitled Karen eventually left and no one tried to stop her as the cops weren't there yet. All the while, my mom was yelling that we would report her for this. We moved on to a different table and we got some replacements for our food, which none of us had really even eaten yet. Unfortunately, we didn't get a replacement for the mimosas, even though that was by far the most expensive thing, because alcohol apparently wasn't replaceable. My mom later complained about that too, because the staff did nothing to stop her from harassing us. They didn't contact the authorities on their own, and some even seemed to know her on a personal level. In the middle of our mostly replaced meal, the cops came and got our statement, to which my mom absolutely said she wanted to press charges. But it turns out it's not so easy, and we're still in the paperwork and reporting aspect of it, but my mom is quite adamant to continue on with it as she hates being treated like a second-class citizen, especially in front of her family. But needless to say, I think after all of that, we are definitely not going to be going back to IHOP anytime soon. That is a terrible situation. I can't believe somebody acted like that. Like, this really did kind of escalate in a way that nobody probably ever expected, because seriously, this Karen like went off her rocker. Is it really that much to ask to keep your kid away from someone else's food? Asthma is not an excuse for your kid to cough all over someone else's food. That is honestly obnoxious and there's no good excuse for that. I cannot stand parents who act like that, where they literally will make an excuse for anything their kid is doing just so they can get away from actually being a parent and disciplining them. So truly, I hope this all works out for you and your family, because the way this Karen acted is awful and she absolutely deserves to get in trouble. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My best friend's mom confessed in front of everybody that she has a crush on my boyfriend, and I have never been put in a more awkward situation in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to preface this by saying that I mostly just want to get this off my chest because I can't possibly be the only one weirded out by this situation. I'm a 21-year-old male, and my 19-year-old boyfriend and I went to my best friend's birthday today. Keep in mind, my boyfriend and I have been together for a year, and this is maybe the third or fourth time he's interacted with our female friend's mom. Never for an extended period of time, and never without me present. My friend's mom is in her 60s, and she is kind of weird to begin with. It might have something to do with her being bipolar, but I'm not really sure. On Halloween, the three of us went out, and my boyfriend and I stepped in for a bit when we picked my friend up from her house. Her mom was there, and within the first few minutes, my boyfriend crouched down to pet their dog, and my friend's mom leaned over and started petting his hair. And for reference, he has long curly hair that goes past his shoulders. Now, during and afterwards, he brushed it off by laughing and said it was a natural reaction, but it came up recently, and he admitted that he did find it weird, and I don't think he would have tolerated it in a different situation, which then leads to tonight. So, in the middle of the party, this 60-year-old woman loudly exclaims to her roommate, who is another older woman, that she has a crush on my boyfriend. It was hard to hear some of it due to all the talking, but she said it was because he's so nice, and said something about how if she was younger, things would be different. So yeah, things got awkward really quickly. This immediately made me, my friend, and my boyfriend look at each other. He made a face like, this is weird and very uncomfortable. Neither of us verbalized it, but my friend did. Like the first time when she straight up said, no, that's weird, which didn't stop her mom from petting him uncomfortably. And I'm just like, how do you even respond to that? I know some people are going to comment that it's just a thing with older generations, but that doesn't necessarily make it okay. And on a deeper level, she related his personality to having a crush on him, which honestly weirds me out more than if it was just his looks, and straight up pet him like a dog. All three of us, but mainly him, are uncomfortable with this, as it really is a weird situation for us to be stuck in. Yeah, that is a seriously weird situation, and I know exactly what the original poster's talking about. Someone comes up and says, oh, if I was younger, it would be so different. I would sweep you off your feet. And it's like, wait a second, I do not know you like that, and that is incredibly weird. Not to mention that she's like, I don't know, petting someone's head, as if this is some kind of like fun game between the two of them. And you know what? I don't even blame this guy's reaction in the slightest. If that was me in the moment, I probably would not know what to do either. Like, I would also probably just laugh it off in some kind of way. But also, I would take a mental note and be like, never again. This is never happening again. So yeah, that was a really weird and creepy situation, and I don't blame you for being upset by that, because if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My boyfriend's controlling and clingy parents literally will not leave us alone, and after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because right now, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to put it bluntly, my boyfriend's mother wants to be his #1 priority and make me the side chick, but it's not always been like this. I triggered some huge insecurity in her, and this didn't kick up until she realized that I'm not some flavor of the week and that I'm not going away. She has been escalating because I'm a threat to her control over him, so now she's controlling my access to him by giving him a curfew, not allowing sleepovers, and she makes plans that exclude me and doesn't tell him until the last possible minute so he can't invite me. She also knows my work schedule, and she is beginning to time her plans with him around the only days I get to see him. She tells him when he can and can't spend time with me because she misses him and she never gets to see him. And honestly, cry me a river. They and his 3 other siblings live together. She's just feeling sorry for herself because he has a girlfriend now, and she's jealous of the attention I'm getting, as well as playing the victim and acting like I'm taking away from her. So now she's taking him away from me. She plays the game and is polite to my face, but she is pulling strings behind the scenes that are definitely personal. Another example is that she had a family night where no girlfriends were allowed, so they could go watch a movie with him that's fairly new, which is one that we were going to watch together because she knew this was our thing, and she did this on purpose without me. She also told me that he can't come to my house, but if I want to see him, I have to spend my gas and drive to see him at their house on her terms. And I'm just thinking to myself, no, I'm not going to have someone tell me where and when I can see my boyfriend. It's also important to note that he got a DUI in April, and he doesn't get his license back for 2 more months, and he's taking a DUI class. Now, before you judge, he was raised with alcoholic parents who normalize a lot of unhealthy behaviors, but he's growing as a person and realizing why alcohol is destructive. I believe he needed that wake-up call because I've noticed a shift in his habits, and he's becoming a better role model for his younger siblings, so I'm proud of him for turning things around. However, his restricted license expired, and he had to call another number to get it renewed, and he should have gotten it by now, but I think his mother intercepted his mail and hid it from him, so now he has to depend on her for rides. Therefore, she controls where he goes and what he does. She is also keeping him naive and disadvantaged so she can keep him dependent on her and have control over him in very sick and insidious ways, giving him bad career advice and telling him false things about the real world so he has a simplistic belief about it that's just totally not true, and in a roundabout way, she's setting him up for failure, and it's all to her benefit so that he can't leave her. She's so obsessed with him that she will be the puppet master and manipulate his whole life if it means he ultimately has to come back and obey her. I even caught her lying to me and telling me he wasn't home when he was. She had turned his phone off so he wouldn't hear her calling or texting him, and we had plans that day, so I wanted to know if they were still on or if something had come up. So I gritted my teeth and I texted her to ask if he was home, and she just straight up told me no. Well, I found out by calling his dad, and he was working on his car in the garage, but she wasn't going to get her butt up off the couch and take 2 steps outside and tell him that I called or put him on the phone with me. Last night, his phone kept lighting up when we were trying to watch a movie at my house. His dad eventually called him, and it was barely 8:00 p.m. asking when he was coming home. I wanted so badly to take the phone out of my boyfriend's hand, hold it to my ear, and tell his dad to get lost, because his parents know by now that I always get Cinderella home before midnight. This must be so embarrassing for him, but it's infuriating to me to watch him go through this and also have a third party control my adult relationship with my boyfriend. I'm honestly so frustrated, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. First of all, I want to say that the mom in this story sounds crazy. She really does sound like the weird jealous type, and it sounds like she's trying to hold on to her precious baby and is straight up just refusing to let him go and move on with his life. Like seriously, he is allowed to have a girlfriend. So the fact that she's trying to get in the way of that and literally do anything she can to keep her son in her house and away from you is just really weird overall. But in my opinion, the biggest problem in this story is the fact that that your boyfriend is not taking any kind of steps to get away from his mom in this way. Like, why is he not putting a foot down and being like, wait a second, you do not control my life. You can't tell me what I can and can't do, and because I'm an adult, I don't have to abide by your curfew. I can understand if there's some kind of like house rules that he might have to abide by, but it sounds like this guy is a grown adult, meaning that he can make his own decisions and choose what he wants to do with his life. So for his mom to be like, no, you have a curfew, and guess what? You can't go anywhere without my permission, or at least saying that in the way that she acts, like that is all crazy to me, and there's no good excuse for that. So if I was in your shoes, I would be sitting down with this boyfriend and being like, okay, what's going on here? Why are you not taking a stand against your mom? Or at the bare minimum, coming to bat for you? It seems like you're doing everything you can to stay in contact with your boyfriend, but he, on the other hand, isn't doing nearly enough to try and keep in contact with you. Like, does he not want to be around you? Like, what's going on right now? So honestly, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this because this sounds absolutely obnoxious. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very frustrated as well. Am I the jerk for blowing up at my mother-in-law at a family dinner after she disgraced the memory of my dead mother? Here's what happened. Okay, so this is a throwaway account since my husband is an active user online. I'm a 23-year-old female and I've been married to my husband who's 24 for about 3 years now. We were high school sweethearts and we have been best friends ever since elementary school, and he still is my best friend even to this day. I've never had a great relationship with his mom as she is very difficult to talk to, and our conversations are usually very shallow, stuff like gossiping about neighbors or complaining about the landscapers, etc. Almost a year ago, my mom passed away, which still feels very surreal to write about. She truly was my soulmate, and I'm incredibly grateful to have had her in my life for 23 years. I miss her more than words can describe. My husband's family really stepped up during that time, supporting us financially with funeral costs and managing affairs when I was deep in grief, and I'm genuinely grateful for their help. Now, fast forward to now, and we're expecting our first baby. As excited as I am, I'm also deeply saddened that my mom won't be here to guide me through this. We always talked about what my kids would call her, and at the time, we settled on the name Grams. Now, onto the incident. We were celebrating our pregnancy at a dinner with my in-laws, and my mother-in-law asked to make a toast. She laughed and said, "I'm so grateful to celebrate a new addition to our family. We can't wait to meet our little Veronica," which, by the way, is her name. She then went on to talk about her own pregnancy and what I should expect, mentioning that my husband had an abnormal head when he was born. Then she said to me, "I look forward to being the first grandma to Veronica, since of course I'll be the only grandma." Well, when she said that, the room went silent, and I just started to cry. I stood up and I told her how incredibly insensitive it was to say that, and that my mom would always be a grandmother whether she's here or not. She responded by saying I was overreacting and that it was all just a joke, but I told her to go straight to Hades and that I left immediately. My husband later called me, saying that he spoke to his mom, who was in tears because she was so embarrassed. She asked him to apologize on her behalf, and he told me that I should have come back instead of telling her to go to Hades and storm off. I'm currently staying with my sister and I haven't stopped crying ever since. She supports me 100%, but I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, for starters, no, you're not the jerk, and I want to explain why. Your mother-in-law is not only a vindictive person, but also she might be just straight up evil. For her to be like, oh, you're gonna name your first kid Veronica, but also be like, oh, I'm gonna be the only grandma in this kid's life. Like, if that isn't a very pointed insult towards you and a very serious jab at your dead mother, then in my opinion, I don't know what is. Because she said that on purpose. She said that to try and hurt you, and that is not fair for you in the slightest. And the biggest evidence of that, in my opinion, is the fact that she was crying because she was embarrassed and not because she realized the error of her ways. She wasn't upset because she realized she offended you, or that she basically spat on the memory of your mother. She only cried to your husband because she was embarrassed. Think about that for a second. She only cared about how she was perceived by everybody else instead of actually coming to you and being like, wait a second, what I said was so bad, I'm so sorry. Her priorities are completely mixed up and turned around that it couldn't be more obvious that she's playing her hand and basically being like this vindictive monster. And you know what? For your husband to be like, oh, come on, you should have come back. Like, no, absolutely not. If that was me, there's no way I would go back to that stupid dinner. Here you are trying to celebrate your pregnancy, and she talks about her own pregnancy and tries to name your child, while also, you know, insulting your mother who passed away. Like, this whole situation sucks, and it's that lady's fault, not yours. Because you only walked out as a result of her comments. Like, you should not be blamed for her awful behavior, but instead, she should absolutely be held accountable for the crappy things she just said to you. So no, you are definitely not the jerk at all in this situation, because what your mother-in-law did at this family dinner was so inappropriate, and you did not deserve that in the slightest. My dad's fiance is demanding that I babysit
babysit her kids during their wedding. But even after I said no, my dad's fiance is furious with me, claiming that I have an obligation to do so for my new siblings. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not, because all of this is blowing way out of proportion. Here's what happened. So my dad and his fiance, who we will call Kristen, are getting married in January. Kristen has 3 kids under 8 years old, and my dad has me, and I'm a 17-year-old male. My mom died 11 years ago, and Kristen's ex-husband is alive, but doesn't play a role in the lives of their kids, except for child support, which is apparently taken from his income because he simply wasn't paying. Her kids don't remember their dad, and so my dad and Kristen are hoping that dad will become their new dad. I met Kristen and her kids about 4 to 5 months ago at the same time, and given my age and the fact that I did fine with just me and my dad, I'm not looking for Kristen to fill any sort of maternal or motherly role. I also don't think I'll be engaging with Kristen's kids as a sibling. Now this upsets her because she wanted me to be the cool older sibling for them, and someone who might babysit on occasion, but mostly someone who'd make a point to spend time with them. But I'm not planning on spending too much time with them. I have plans for once I turn 18 years old, and my dad always knew this. So this has fed into the whole babysitting the kids during the wedding stuff. Kristen says that since I won't be 18 when they get married, and I'll still be living with my dad, I should be willing to monitor her kids throughout the wedding. And my dad admitted that she's hoping it makes me a little more willing to be someone to her kids. I said no when I was initially asked, and I was very clear with my response. Kristen then told me that it wasn't like I was looking forward to the wedding anyways, so why not just agree to babysit? She told me that it would give me the chance to bond with her kids, and I said no. My dad said he would pay me to do it if I was agreeable to money for it. But then Kristen was saying that it would be hurtful if I wouldn't do it as a favor to my growing family. Dad told her it was expecting a little too much, and she argued that if I'm there and I'm still living with him, I should be willing, and that I seem so resistant acting like a sibling, and that this is incredibly childish. There was some more back and forth about it, and Kristen got really pissed off when I said it again as clearly as I could, stating very plainly that I won't babysit during their wedding. Dad said he would pay for a sitter, but Kristen said I should really be more willing here. That dad and I don't have an awful relationship, so why won't I give all this a chance and make the day less expensive and more of a happy memory for everybody? So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk for saying no. Like sure, Kristen can be disappointed in your actions or whatever she wants to say, but for her to keep asking over and over again and be like, no, you have to do it, we're family. Like that's obnoxious in my opinion, and I would get so annoyed by that. Like there's no reason to try and guilt trip you into this as if this is some kind of family that you want to be a part of. Like you're literally going to be out of that house in a year. The day you turn 18, you're going to be moving on with your life. Like your dad knows this and probably has accepted this. So it's kind of weird that Kristen is like, no, you need to be a big brother to your siblings. And it's like, lady, I don't have siblings. These are not my siblings. They are your kids and I have nothing to do with them. And it's so weird that she's trying to like force this relationship in some kind of way, because you've clearly made your wishes known. You don't want to do that and you just want to move on with your life. And considering all the details here, I honestly don't blame you in the slightest for doing that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because in my opinion, Kristen is over the line for pressuring you in the way that she's trying to do. My mother-in-law secretly obtains our address and shows up unannounced, demanding that we give her time with our kids, or else she would call the police and get our kids taken away. And despite the fact that we went no contact with this woman several years ago, and that we live in a different country and never gave her our address, we are now incredibly shaken that this woman not only found us, but is also making these outlandish demands. Here's what happened. Let me start off by saying that I'm a very happy 29-year-old female living with my husband Alex, who's 31, as well as our 4 kids ages 7 all the way down to 1 year old. My husband and I had pretty bad childhoods, but I have great contact with my parents, and when we still live fairly near them, they would come and help out by cleaning the entire apartment, and overall they were amazing. Meanwhile, his family is absolutely insane. His father's in jail and his mom is absolutely crazy. There's been so much insane drama with her that a few years ago when we moved back to the United Kingdom from a different country, we went completely no contact with her. Alex also has a sister and a brother, and while we don't talk with a brother, we are really close to his sister. She lives in London and is also no contact with my mother-in-law. She recently graduated from university and she loves our kids, so we think that's great. The last time we heard from my mother-in-law was 2 years ago, which was right when we moved, but since then everything has been really calm. Well, fast forward to 3 weeks ago, and I was recently looking through old photos and I realized that Alex and I hadn't gone on a proper date in ages. Once every 2 months, we used to take a weekend trip to the beach or the mountains or the city, all before we had kids. And even after our first date, we stuck to the tradition and we took the baby with us. But after our second, we just didn't have the time anymore. We were busy, plus we live by the beach, so if we want a nice outing, we just take a 1-minute stroll there and then we call it a day. But looking back at those photos really just brought back this nostalgia of a time spent just with the two of us. And after talking with Alex, we decided it would be nice to take maybe a weekend trip down to France the following week. Now, I don't work and Alex has a flexible schedule, and while we did have to move a few things around, overall it wasn't that hard. His sister immediately agreed to come and look after our children, and the kids are excited to see their aunt. I was a bit sad to leave the babies, but knew that it would be good for our relationship to have some time just for ourselves. So we were all ready for our trip. It was Wednesday and we were all set to go by Friday evening. Alex was at work and I was home alone with the children when I heard the doorbell go off. I go and open the door, and there, standing with a smug grin on her face, is my mother-in-law. And I was shocked to say the least, because how on earth did she find out our address? She doesn't even live in the same country as us, and yet here she was standing at my doorstep. She then pointed at my son, who I was holding, and said, "Oh, is that the newest baby? I've never even met him." She then practically pushed herself in and casually sat down in the living room, while I tried to figure out what on earth I was gonna do. When I asked her why she was here, she tried to avoid the topic, and instead wanted to see the other kids and bond with them until Alex came home, but I would not let her. It might sound rude of me, but as I said, she's done some incredibly toxic things in the past before and after I gave birth, so this was to protect our family. Finally, she dropped the sweet grandma mask and revealed the true reason that she was here, to persuade me into letting her spend the weekend with her grandkids. She somehow found out that we were going to France and leaving the kids with my sister-in-law, and she just wasn't having that. She began saying that my sister-in-law was irresponsible and young. She wouldn't manage taking care of 4 young children for 2 whole nights. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law explained she was experienced after raising 3 children, so she would have no problem. Plus, according to her, she was already here, so she could do it. Now, when I said no, she shifted her personality and became serious, which meant yelling at me and telling me she had the right to see her grandbabies, and that she would call the police and demand grandparental rights. She claimed I was being awful and neglectful for planning to leave my children alone for a whole weekend, and that she'll call CPS and really try to get us in trouble. Now, I was getting tired and I asked her to leave, but she said she won't and literally sat down on the couch refusing to move. When I called Alex to come home, he was not pleased and got into a heated argument with his mother, which resulted in her finally leaving. However, this whole thing is nuts because we cannot figure out how she found out our address or even our weekend plans. And my sister-in-law swears that she didn't tell any relatives and only told her colleagues and roommates about what was going on. Now, as for my mother-in-law, she didn't fully leave. I have no idea where she's staying at the moment, but we see her driving a rental car outside of our house constantly, as if she's some kind of surveillance officer. It's so ridiculous but scary at the same time, because our 2 older kids are constantly playing outside in the garden without supervision, and while we obviously have a fence and security cameras, it's still a scary thought that she might try to snatch one of them up, even though Alex assures me that she wouldn't go that far. We ultimately canceled our trip due to fear that she would try to pull something while we were gone, and we're still trying to figure out how she found us, and we're just waiting for her to do something that would let us get a restraining order against her. She is a scary woman for sure, and it seriously left us in a really awful spot. This is really scary because seriously, this lady is not right in the head. First of all, she basically broke into your house and she said, "Oh, I'm not leaving until I can see the kids and spend time with them," while also saying that if she didn't get her way, she was going to call the police and make up all these lies. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that's the only reason she's outside of your house constantly in that rental car. She's probably trying to document some kind of situation just so she can try and have it in her back pocket as some kind of like ultimatum, even though that would never work and what she's trying to do is insane. Like, she's clearly not right in the head, and it's obvious that she has ill intentions towards you and your family, because for her to show up to your house unannounced as well as having your address in the first place, like, that is really intrusive and really scary. And I really think if I was in your shoes, I would go to the police. I would tell them exactly what's going on, and if they really do have cameras, then I would be like, look, this is her basically forcing her way into my house, because this entire scenario is really sketchy, and if I was in your shoes, I would take this very seriously. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for allegedly ruining my friend's vacation after they sent me a text message saying that I ruined everything based on the way I was acting? Because
because right now I'm completely floored and blown away, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 38-year-old female, and I just got back from vacation with my 2 lifelong friends. For the sake of the story, we'll call them Kate and Mary. I've known them since university, and we've always been close. The 3 of us have been planning this Bali trip for a few months, along with our husbands and their kids. They both have children under 5, while my husband and I are child-free. For the sake of the story, we'll call my husband Jake. We agreed to split the cost of a 4-bedroom villa 3 ways, and everything seemed fine at first. Jake and I arrived in Bali earlier than the rest of the group because we had different flights. Once we got to the villa, we waited to choose rooms with our friends and didn't mind when they both chose the ones with in-suites. We had a great time during the trip. Jake and I did some couples activities like hiking or getting a massage or having dinner, but we also spent time with Kate and Mary and their families whenever it worked for everybody else. To be nice, I even surprised them with massages to give them a break. The only thing that made me uncomfortable was that whenever I ordered a drink, which was a cocktail before dinner or a glass of wine with meals, I'd get comments like, "Oh, you're drinking again?" Now, for context, I'm a social drinker and I don't drink that often, but we were on vacation and I didn't think it was a big deal, especially since our husbands were drinking too. Well, I just ignored the comments so I could enjoy the trip. On the last night, Jake and I made plans with the guys to go out, and Kate and Mary said they were staying in to pack. Jake convinced me to join him, and since it was the last night of our vacation, I didn't want to stay in either. We went out and we honestly had a great time. We got back home at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I passed out straight afterwards. The next morning was a bit chaotic with everyone packing and checking out, but we all made it back home without issue. We had booked business class seats back, so we were separated during the flight and said quick goodbyes at the airport. Well, a week after returning home, I got a long text message from Kate saying that both she and Mary wanted to reduce contact with me because apparently I had ruined their vacation. They mentioned several things like me drinking every night and that I wasn't acting like a girl's girl and that I booked different flights and I didn't hang out with them enough and that I was selfish for not helping them with their kids. She even said that I was just focusing on partying and not acting my age, and this message really hurt me. Well, I cried after reading it, and honestly, I don't know what to think yet. I thought I was just enjoying my vacation, but clearly they had a very different view. I haven't responded yet, and my husband has been asking me what's bothering me, but I don't know what to say. So am I the jerk for how I acted on the trip? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they wanted to share. Here's what they had to say. Okay, first of all, I want to thank everybody for their kind words and their support. Reading through the responses and seeing how many of you are upset on my behalf has made me reflect on how I initially planned to handle things. I was going to apologize, thinking it might be the easiest way to keep the peace, but now I realize that might not be the right approach after all. I've also showed my husband Jake this post and the text message, and he told me to thank you for looking out for me, and he's actually pretty angry on my behalf about the text message too. I also showed him some of the comments that gave me insight on how my friends may have been feeling, which has given both of us a lot to think about. He also asked me what I wanted to do next, and if I wanted him to respond to my friends for me. While I appreciated the offer, I told him I'm still thinking it over. He reassured me that he's here for me no matter what, and if I decided I want him to step in, then he would be ready to say something on my behalf. For now, I'm going to sleep on it and take some time before I respond, or even if I just don't respond to the text message. But again, I want to thank everybody for helping me see things a bit more clearly, because right now, I feel less alone in all of this craziness. Okay, first of all, no, you're absolutely not the jerk, and I definitely echo pretty much all the comments that are in this post, where people basically say, yeah, you did nothing wrong. For starters, you were on vacation. Of course you're gonna have fun and spend time with your husband. For them to be like, oh, you were drinking every night and you didn't spend any time with us. Like, seriously, are you also married to them? Like, what is this all about? Are you kidding me right now? They're trying to make this sound like you were just drunk out of your mind and you were stumbling all over yourself and you were not acting your age, but it's like, are you kidding me? I'm in Bali on vacation with people I thought were my friends. If anything, that is definitely the place to let your hair down and just have some fun. Not to mention harmless fun on top of that. I find it also really funny that they're like, you didn't even help with any of our kids. It's like, okay, what are we talking about here? Did you really expect the original poster and their husband to watch your kids while you guys went out and did whatever you want? Their choice to be child-free doesn't mean that they should be saddled with your kids. If you didn't want your kids with you on this trip, then guess what? You should have left them with a babysitter or a family member or somebody else. Like, how is this the original poster's problem at all? Just because Kate and Mary didn't get the most out of their trip like they were wanting to, doesn't mean that the original poster's at fault. It just means that Kate and Mary are jealous of Jake in the original poster. Like, come on, that's all that's going on
on here. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. And honestly, if Kate and Mary want to pull away from you for not being more involved in their stupid trip, then honestly, by all means. Because if I was in your shoes, that is not the kind of people I want to be friends with. Especially if they're going to try and blame me for their vacation. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for locking my husband out of the house, all because he wouldn't stop bringing stray animals into our home? Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband has a huge soft spot for animals. Like, it's a nice trait and all, but it's getting out of control. Every time he sees a stray dog or cat, or even a raccoon, he brings it home, as he would say, just for the night to make sure it's okay. We've been married for 5 years, and in that time, I've come home to at least 20 different animals in our house. Some were covered in fleas, some chewed up our furniture, and one time, he even brought home a possum that hissed at me when I went into the kitchen. It is beyond stressful, especially since we already have 3 pets of our own. I've told him countless times to stop bringing strays home, but he just brushes it off, saying, well, I can't just leave them on the street. Well, last night was the final straw. He comes home at midnight with a stray goat that he found wandering near a park. Yes, a goat. And he thought it would be fine to just let it stay in our living room overnight. Well, I lost it. I told him he's being ridiculous and that he can't keep doing this, but he still wouldn't listen. So I did something drastic. While he was out in the backyard trying to build some makeshift pen for the goat, I locked the doors and I told him he could sleep outside if he was so attached. Well, he ended up sleeping in the car because it was cold, and now he is furious with me, saying I overreacted and that it's cruel to lock your own husband out. Well, I told him I'm done living in an animal shelter and that it's either the strays or me. Well, he says I'm heartless and that I should be more compassionate, but I feel like I've put up with enough. So am I the jerk for locking him out because he wouldn't stop bringing home random animals? What should I do? Okay, for starters, I do think you're the jerk for locking your husband out, because this is like a massive overreaction. Seriously, it's cold out and you made him sleep in the car. I get that you don't like these animals in your house, but this is like over the line in my opinion. Like, this absolutely can be the last straw and you can be like, okay, this is not gonna happen any longer. We gotta figure something out. But to lock him out of the house like that, I really do think that's over the line and that should not have happened. But also on that same note, this is not excusing your husband's behavior. Like, this guy's bringing home random animals that you're like, okay, I don't want this in the house. Because trust me, I'm right there with you. If I saw a possum in my kitchen, or even like a stray dog or cat with fleas, or even a raccoon, like, I would be losing my cool as well. So hopefully there's some kind of solution here where your husband can still rescue these animals, but keep them out of your house in the process, because that is clearly a combination that is not working for the both of you. Am I the jerk for telling my little sister that she is insane for taking the door off of her daughter's bedroom as some kind of punishment, all because she didn't want to go to Girl Scouts? Here's what happened. So I recently told my sister that she was turning into our mentally unstable mother and was ruining her relationship with her daughter, who we will call Sarah, which is something our mother did with us. For context, Sarah is a really good girl. She's homeschooled, very sheltered, and heavily involved in Girl Scouts. My sister controls literally every aspect of her life. Sarah has been apparently acting out lately, such as saying no to chores and refusing to cooperate, which is something that I think is pretty normal for this age. And for reference, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them have gone through puberty. It's obvious to me that Sarah is acting out as a way to establish some independence and doesn't have the tools to be able to express this need to my sister. Defiance is obviously something that needs to be addressed, but I think my sister would have a much better outcome with a compassionate conversation with Sarah. I know it's not my place, but I believe with my whole heart that it's time for her to let Sarah know that she is proud of her and trusts her to do the best in making good choices, and is going to be giving her more freedoms to positively reinforce her good choices, not the opposite. Also, 2 days after this whole ordeal, Sarah started her first period, so I know this all is likely a hormonal surge and should have been met with compassion and not anger and punishment. Anyways, Sarah didn't want to go to Girl Scouts. She had to compete against other girls for a badge and was too embarrassed at the thought of losing, so she flat out refused to go. Well, when Sarah said this, my sister was so upset with her. She didn't ask her why she didn't want to go, but instead she just became really heated, and things somehow escalated to the point where my sister took away all of Sarah's privileges, namely her electronics, her phone, even any books, and told her that she was only allowed to leave her bedroom to go to the bathroom. The next day, when my sister was bringing Sarah her lunch, she caught her reading, and my sister just lost her mind. She threw Sarah's lunch on her bed and said to her, "The next step is calling the police, and trust me, your treatment here is far better than the treatment you'll receive in jail." And Sarah responded in tears by saying, "Okay, call them." So my sister walked walked away pretending to call the police. And when she came back, she removed Sarah's door from her bedroom and said that the police told her to do that first and that the next step was going to be jail. And I honestly feel the way she's treating Sarah is awful. My sister and I have always been very close and promised to let each other know if we were turning into our mom. Well, I did that, and now she's not talking to me. So am I the jerk here? Should I just tell her to parent the way that she sees fit, even if she's going to destroy her relationship with her kids and with me? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk for saying something, because seriously, the way your sister's acting is insane. She's treating her daughter as if she did some horrible crime, but literally she's just growing up and doesn't want to go to Girl Scouts. So for her to be like, oh, you're gonna go to jail, and then take the door off its hinges and be like, oh, the cops wanted me to do that. Like seriously, this is an overreaction to like the highest degree. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for telling her the truth, because seriously, the way she's acting is not okay, and she is only ruining her relationship with her family in the process. Am I the jerk for refusing to throw away a bunch of my clothing simply because my partner thinks that I have too many? Because right now I'm very frustrated, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner and I moved into a new house recently. He is paying for the home as well as the vast majority of our expenses. For reference, he is well off, and my net worth is about 3% of his for context. In our home, we have a walk-in closet. Currently, I use about 60% of the closet, and he uses 20%, and the 20% that's unused is available for him to use. In addition to the closet space in our bedroom, we currently have 2 guest bedrooms with large closets as well. Prior to purchasing our new home, we lived separately, and when moving here, I was very deliberate about which of my clothes I was bringing along, and I used it as an opportunity to get rid of a ton of items of clothing that I literally no longer want. Well, my partner has said to me, hey, I want us to go through your clothes and decide which ones we're keeping and which ones you don't wear or use, and we should honestly just get rid of it. And I responded by saying, okay, we can, but I already did that, and I only brought over the clothes I know I want to keep, so I don't think this is necessary and it won't lead to me getting rid of them. He responded that he still wanted to go through them, stating that it's fine if we don't end up getting rid of anything, but also that he doesn't want to bring junk into our new home, while also saying that I have way too many clothes. He also offered that we could go through his things and do the same thing, but I said that I don't have any problem with how many clothes he has, and I'm not concerned about what he keeps or doesn't keep. To me, this whole thing is unnecessary, and I don't even see why it needs to be an issue. We have the space, I already did what he is asking me to do on my own, and also I'm having a hard time seeing why this even matters or is an issue. And this isn't the first time this has come up. He's brought it up multiple times, leading to a similar conversation, with last night's being especially vitriolic. I got upset about it while we were discussing it last night, and I said to him, why can't I bring what I want into our new home? And he just said to me, fine, I don't care, bring anything, and why don't you pay for everything too? And then he left because he needed a break. So seriously, am I the one being unreasonable here? What should I do? No, you're not being unreasonable at all. You already did what the original poster wants to do, so there's literally no point in doing it again. It also sounds like you guys have plenty of closet space like around the house. So if this really is like a space question, then honestly it seems like he's making a mountain out of molehills. This is also such a weird thing to be controlling over. Like, why is he so upset about this specific thing? It doesn't make sense, and it's just kind of weird in my opinion. I don't know, it's like a borderline red flag if you ask me. Like, is he controlling in other areas of your life? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but this just seems a little sketchy in my opinion. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. There's nothing wrong with the clothing that you have, and I really think this is just something that your partner is just gonna have to get over. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.